Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Taco Tuesdays. We have made it another week through this dystopian nightmare we call life, with real-world politics escalating every single day of the week. Even though we had to take the holiday break last week and we didn't get to cover much of what happened last week, trust me, it has only descended into more chaos since. Lucky for us, Anna is still one of the best support staff that we could ever ask for, and we have ourselves a short list, but a list that will nevertheless give us a lot to talk about, so we can actually spend a little bit of time on each video without any concerns. So, we will definitely be talking about the attack on Venezuela today and tomorrow and probably Thursday, because quite frankly, it's not that it's unprecedented, it's the unprecedented aspect is the fact that it isn't happening behind the scenes, right? It's not that it's being hidden or not discussed at all. America is fully throatedly with its full chest saying, yep, we attacked Venezuela, what are you going to do about it? Instead of like, oh no, Venezuela miraculously got attacked by somebody, what should we do about that? So, lots to cover today. And with Anna, hello Anna, with Anna being on stream, if she thinks or sees something that we can add to it, then we will do that as well. So, let's jump right into it.
Another U.S.
claims attack on dock in Venezuela as missiles also kill 2 in the Pacific. I mean, that headline, right? America is bragging about attacking a Venezuelan dock. That is a declaration of war in any other point in time in history. Like, that is not an oopsie. That is not a testing the waters. That is a declaration of war. You attacked a dock from a foreign country. If Venezuela had attacked so much as, well, hell, if Venezuela had killed one of our fishermen off of our coasts, we would have done glassed the country. But America, being big bad America, has been doing this for months, bragging about it openly and trying to also discredit the sovereignty of the nation and the legality of the administration of that nation. It cannot be stressed enough how brazenly corrupt and malicious this is. Never mind that it's a war crime, right? Never mind that America is instigating war. Like, that's bad enough. But the brazenness of it, the full-throated support of committing a war crime, of attacking another country by this administration, I mean, the Nuremberg equivalent trials that are going to happen in America are going to be impressive. One, they're going to be in 4K. It's going to be public. It's damn near going to be an international holiday when it happens. And it's going to happen. It's going to be days worth of trials, though. I can assure you that. That is how many people are complicit in this corruption. So, let's actually play the video and see what we get.
Strike on a boat, this time in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2, raising the number of known strikes to 31, with more than 100 people killed.
Isn't that an average of 1 strike a week since August when this began?
The U.S. has claimed without proof that it is targeting boats running drugs, specifically fentanyl. Experts say very little, if any, fentanyl comes out of Venezuela. Still, U.S. President Donald Trump is continuing his pressure campaign, now asserting more military action has happened inside Venezuela.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs, so we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
Who the hell is feeding him these talking points? Because implementation area, it's a dock, so it would be the loading area. Where the fuck did he come up with the word implementation for this nonsense? Secondly, standing next to Netanyahu, an international war criminal. Meanwhile, the Epstein scandal is escalating further and further, which, actually, I didn't see too much on that for today's stream. Anna, can you add a few Epstein videos to this stream? Because, like, that is definitely still current events, and it is definitely ongoing, like, as far as the scandal escalating. The ballroom trials, the Central Park's trial. See, it's funny you mentioned the Central Park, and I know why you'd mention it, is because all these Republicans are like, if liberals end up winning the elections, they're going to execute us in Central Park or Madison Square Garden. And it's like, well, now that you mention it, that's a great place to hold public executions of war criminals, criminals against humanity, criminals against democracy, and traitors to our nation. So, I'm here for it. Correct, there's no evidence of any of the drug running. And in fact, I'm surprised there's even fishermen from Venezuela trying to even go off the coast, because it, and here's the thing too, it's the scare tactics. I wish this cough would go away. Sorry. So let's do Jesus. Anyway, maybe I'll be able to nope. Eventually I'll be able to talk during this stream. All right. My goodness. I'm going to try the honey, see if that doesn't help. I can handle sweet a little bit better now. Okay. We have beaten this horse to death, but we are killing people without any sort of due process or military intelligence to corroborate that those people even are criminal elements in any way, form, or fashion. We have already shown the capacity of capturing an entire oil tanker without casualties, but are somehow afraid of capturing a drug boat with no casualties. I really don't understand the logic behind that. Of course, we've also beaten to death that every single missile that has been fired and every person that carried out the order from command all the way down to the person pressing the button is also committing a war crime, right? It's not just Trump and Hegseth. No. It's the secretaries of the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Army. It's all of the generals going down the chain all the way to the poor enlisted bastard who is too afraid to stand their ground and disobey illegal orders, even though that's exactly the law, to disobey illegal orders. But now that we have actually gotten to the escalation of attacking Venezuelan soil, as in a dock being attached to the land of Venezuela, I think we said that within 3 months, 6 months or so, that we would see ground war in Venezuela and that we would be responsible for it, that we would be the bad guys and the aggressors and all of it. Well, turns out that timeline is now happening. Now, is there a full-scale land invasion? No. So maybe we still have a few months left before that happens, or maybe a few weeks at this rate. But it cannot, it cannot be stressed enough. Cannot be stressed enough that what the United States of America is doing under the leadership of Donald J. Trump and Pete Hegseth is criminal. What we are doing in the Caribbean, what we are doing to Venezuela, granted, this isn't even talking about ICE activities or the Epstein files. There is a laundry list of things, but in this particular topic, we are committing a war crime and attacking a sovereign state without any just cause. And we are murdering their citizens without any due process or any sort of intelligence suggesting that they are bad actors in any capacity. And by the way, America unilaterally declaring drug dealers as terrorists without other countries buying in on that, and then America unilaterally murdering people under the suspicion of terrorism, doesn't make it legal either. It might make it legal in the U.S. justice system, but then again, so is murdering black people if you're a cop. So, I mean, legality doesn't necessarily mean ethical or morale, right? So, we cannot be silent on this. And it may seem like it's beating a dead horse, but this is a horse that needs to be beaten, because apparently people are applauding these activities. In fact, as I was canvassing to gather signatures to get on the ballot in Ohio's 15th congressional district, as a Republican, I ran into several people whose values were pro-Trump for the most racist and xenophobic reasons you could possibly imagine. And that is just the few doors that I have personally knocked on, right? I'm trying to gather around 100 signatures. I've probably knocked on 120 doors, perhaps, in the past few weekends. I work during the week, unfortunately. And I would say between 1% and 5% of the people that I knock on their door have something very racist or xenophobic to say. Something to say about transgender people, or queer people, or Hispanic people, or Latino people, or Somali people. It's pretty awful that just with the very small sample size that I am personally witnessing with my own eyes and my own ears, we have a not insignificant number of the population supporting these activities. So, we have to be better at messaging. We have to be better at branding. We have to be better at platforming. We have to be better at outreach to the community. Because right now, conservatives are dominating the news. They are dominating social media. They are buying ads and forcing our timelines and our news feeds to spew the most conservative, anti-populist, pro-capitalist propaganda you have ever seen. The alcohol industry is smearing cannabis left, right, and center. We have pro-alt-right groups being fed more and more and more, despite being left-leaning or traditional conservative, right? We need to fight back. We need to push back. And if money is what's required, then we need to start pooling our resources to do it. Because this war that has been the slowest initiation in probably history, or at least in modern times, the escalation, this war with Venezuela, this aggression against Venezuela is literally the most unnecessary aggression and military action that our country has ever engaged in. And the fact that we're doing it so openly and so brazenly makes it that much worse. It's like all of the clandestine coup d'etat and regime change that we've been doing since the 40s, we're now trying to do openly because we're America and we can do no wrong. It is because we have been desensitized. It has become normalized in our society to witness these atrocities happening and doing nothing about it. So, it is up to us to do something about it. That's all I wanted to say.
The White House, the Pentagon, gave no other information, and no strike inside Venezuela has been confirmed. This comes as the U.S. continues to pursue a third oil tanker associated with Venezuela. It's already commandeered 2 other vessels, which the U.S. president says the U.S. will keep, the oil and the ships. The U.S. military has built up a sizable presence in the region, both troops and equipment. For his part, Venezuela...
I wanted to point out as well that we haven't just seized one oil tanker. We've seized 2. And we're going after a third one. And China has sanctioned the United States in response to that. Now, what is a sanction? Well, essentially, it's wagging your finger at another country by an originating country, right? So it's, it doesn't really have that much merit or weight in the international community because, well, other countries don't have to respect or abide by those sanctions at all. So, again, it's not necessarily posturing. I mean, there is some teeth behind it, but it's still escalation in the grand scheme of things. And the fact that we are seizing oil tankers, and I'm watching my gas prices in Columbus, Ohio, go down by 50 cents overnight, and we just seized 2 oil tankers, that's pretty disturbing. That's pretty self-explanatory. We are literally robbing a nation of its natural resources, killing their people, and attacking their sovereign land. That is the very definition of war, of a declaration of war, at least war activities. Seizing enemy resources, attacking enemy citizens to instill fear and terror, and then, of course, attacking the land itself. Those are all acts of war. And because it isn't a formal declaration and we're not acting in self-defense, it is a war crime. By the way, the oil tankers that we seized were not sanctioned by the U.S. Of course, no, they're just under suspicion of being Venezuelan, or they are Venezuelan, and therefore they are sanctioned by default. I don't know how many different articles I've read where they're facilitating between that they were officially sanctioned, specifically those tankers. They were sanctioned because they belong to Venezuela, or that's just the excuse we're using to justify seizing it and using all of our military resources to capture it without incident while mercilessly murdering people in speedboats. So, yeah.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has instructed his special forces to begin training civilians at a commando training center.
The commando school of the Bolivarian National Guard is one of the best commando schools in the entire world. They come from all over the world to train and learn Venezuelan commando techniques that are infallible in their ability to act, camouflage, attack, and achieve victory.
Thank you.
Trump has indicated he wants Maduro out of power. Maduro has given no indication he plans to leave. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, and why the fuck should Maduro be inclined to leave just because an American president says so? So again, America is an unofficial empire, right? We're not a declared empire. We have 800 military bases in 143 countries, but we're not officially an empire, which means those 800 military bases in 143 countries, or however, I might have the number wrong. It might be like 137. That's kind of irrelevant. The 800 is what is important. Those bases are not American outposts to liaise with the region that we are in as an occupying force or as a governing body. Just because we have bases in France, Belgium, Germany, Japan, Australia, Korea, doesn't mean that those countries are our vassal states, right? Which means even if Trump said Macron should step down, or I know it's not Angela Merkel anymore, but just for the sake of argument, Angela Merkel should step down, or the new PM from Japan should step down because she's a woman, none of those countries have any obligation whatsoever to listen to our president, because our president has no authority or no substance in any of those countries whatsoever other than the diplomatic relations between our nations. That's it. And you know what those diplomatic relations are? Trade. Primarily trade. Maybe cultural exchange, but mostly trade, and maybe partially military given the military bases, right? But predominantly it's about trade. So the fact that people are reporting that Trump wants Maduro out is shitty reporting. Who the fuck cares what Trump wants? If Trump is actively advocating for regime change in another country and taking actions to affect that regime change, he is a war criminal and should be charged accordingly and should be held accountable accordingly. And the fact that no reporters, no journalists from America or overseas seem to be willing to report the actual news, report the actual facts, the actual ramifications of the things that are happening, they are simply regurgitating the actions and the words that are being spewed forth by the most reprehensible people and calling that news and reporting. Trump lying through his teeth and advocating for regime change is a crime. and that is how it should be reported. Netanyahu spewing genocide and colonization is a war crime, and that is how it should be reported. You shouldn't just be taking their words and then putting it on primetime and then discussing the words. That's not reporting. That's propaganda. That's complicity. Which, by the way, during our Central Park or Madison Square Garden trials, that is also going to include journalists and reporters who were complicit through their propagandized reporting. Just to be clear, this isn't just against the politicians or the soldiers or the federal agents or the judges or the prosecutors and the businesses that have been profiting. No. This is also including the reporters who have a civic duty to report what is happening in their country, even if it is critical of the leadership and even if that is somehow dangerous. That makes it even more imperative to report what is happening in this country truthfully and honestly, without fear and with your full chest about what is actually happening. And I cannot think of a single network or journalist or reporter who is doing that consistently. That is prime time. Yes, you have your left-leaning folks that are being pretty on the nose, and then you have the right-wing grifters that are just grifting to hell and back, right? But as far as MSM goes, where is the free press? Where have you seen the free press? Maybe we need to start making flyers and printing them out at work and then distributing them around our community. Have you seen the free press? I see today's stream is going to be a little rough. If only streaming didn't involve talking, right? Too bad we're not a faceless gaming channel. All right. So, this report is 9 minutes long. We'll probably watch most of it. But I think this is going to go into more depth as to what transpired and how.
In an exclusive, sources say the CIA carried out a drone strike on a port facility on Venezuela's coast.
Shocking, it was the CIA engaging in yet more regime change.
Earlier this month. This is the first known U.S. attack on a target inside the country. Now, before this, the U.S. had only conducted strikes on suspected drug trafficking boats in...
This shit right there. That right there, the U.S. has only struck suspected drug trafficking boats? No. There is no suspicion. Because there was no intelligence gathering. There was no due process. There was no hint or attempt of trying to figure out who or what were in those boats. So this motherfucker, I don't know who it is, because they usually don't say who the reporter is. I have no idea who this guy is. But this motherfucker, along with everybody else that we're probably going to see on these MSM networks, are 100% going to be brought to Central Park. Because that right there is propaganda. That is how you normalize war crimes in a country. That is how you manufacture consent for war and war crimes. We saw it in the global war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're seeing it happen now in Venezuela. To the point where they're even bringing back WMDs. That's just fucking insane.
In international waters, destroying more than 30 vessels in the Caribbean Sea. You can see some of the images of what we've seen to this point, and this has typically been in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific. Now, President Trump first acknowledged the strike on a remote Venezuelan dock in an interview last week.
And we just talked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant or a big facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. So we hit them very hard.
I want to bring in CNN's Kevin Liptak, who's in Palm Beach, Florida, for us. So, Kevin, what can you tell us about this new escalation, really, at this point?
Yeah, and it is a major escalation. You know, President Trump has been threatening for weeks now to begin action on land in Venezuela. Now that we're learning that that has actually begun, it does seem to signal a much more aggressive phase in this pressure campaign on the leader there, Nicolas Maduro.
Again, Kevin Liptak. I guess he's going... Honestly, we may as well just write down all of these journalists' names, add them to a list. Oh, wait. Can't do that, right? Wouldn't want to be accused of having a kill list. I'm just creating a war criminals list, a crimes against humanities list, a anti-constitutional list, if you will, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know, guys. It's pretty ridiculous to me that we're phrasing war crimes and military activities against a sovereign state without congressional approval as pressure. As a military member, as a service member, as a veteran, as someone who swore to protect and defend the Constitution, this just does not sit well with me in any capacity. Like, this is the exact thing I served to prevent. This is why I got in the military, to stop this shit from happening. And instead, it's happening. Way to go, America. You were so vehemently against fascism and so convinced you couldn't be propagandized, you not only became fascist, but the most propagandized country in the world. Outstanding.
Now, what sources tell us is that this CIA drone strike took out a facility on a dock on the coast of Venezuela where the U.S. government believes the gang trender Aragua was loading up ships with drugs for onward shipping. Now, there was no one in the facility at the time, so there were no casualties. But I think the way all of this came to light is also extraordinary. You know, CIA operations are normally shrouded in secrecy, and unless President Trump had sort of let it slip in that radio interview, which I would note was with a billionaire Republican donor, it's possible that we may never have known that this had happened. And the president...
There is so much to unpack from that alone. So we targeted a port facility in Venezuela. It's the first known U.S. strike in Venezuela. Trenda Aragua was suspected of using it, and there were no casualties. Because, you know, the first thing you want to do when attacking a suspected drug facility is make sure that nobody is there, nobody is present, and then bomb it to make sure nobody gets hurt. On top of that, we might have only found out about this because our president talked about a classified action on a interview with a billionaire who bought airtime from Trump to benefit himself and Trump. Trump bragged about attacking Venezuela on a public interview with a fellow billionaire and leaked highly classified information. And again, no consequences, no ramifications, and this piece of garbage can barely point out the criminality and the potential fallout of those actions. He can barely even say that this is definitely not okay in any capacity. And oh, by the way, the fact that he is catering to his donors who are blatantly bribing him for favors and favoritism isn't being discussed at all. Sure, this particular video is about Venezuela, but like if you keep bringing up and keep having to discuss individual points that showcase even more corruption and foul play, you still gotta give it the credence it deserves. But that would be actual journalism. My bad.
Over at Mar-a-Lago yesterday was not particularly forthcoming about what all of this looked like. He said it was a major explosion in a dock area. He said they load the boats up with drugs, we hit all the boats, and that this was the implementation area. I was over there and I asked the president point blank whether this was a military strike or whether this was some sort of CIA action, and the president said, "I don't want to say that. I know exactly who it was." So you hear him there sort of not revealing any more details than he let slip in that radio interview. You know, the president did authorize the CIA to take action inside Venezuela earlier this year, but this is really the first we're hearing of what exactly...
I mean, the fact that He was openly and publicly authorizing the CIA to engage with Venezuela. I mean, I I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I do. It's just when this is written in history book, like this is what gets me. We've joked that in the past that like every year since like 2017, maybe, since Trump took office the first time, you could probably write history classes, just the class, on any given month since around 2017, or maybe even earlier than that, because of how many historically significant things happened. Whether that's corruption, whether that's criminal activity, whether that's international intrigue or international issues, the rise of fascism, the rise of the alt-right. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna need to learn sign language or something. All right. As I was saying, there have been so many things happening during the first administration, and then again during the Biden administration, and then really it just seems like historical events started kicking off from COVID onward. We had the collapse of the North Pole and Antarctica, the polar ice caps finally melting and collapsing, genocide against Palestine. You have Russia invading Ukraine. And you, again, the rise of the alt-right and fascism in across the globe, right? And I mean, this 2025, American history in 2025 is so belligerently corrupt and malicious that it would have to be described the same exact way as the rise of Hitler and Nazis in Hitler's Germany, right before World War II. Because nothing less than that would accurately describe what is happening the past 11 months or so since Inauguration Day. And that's the problem. Our history is being written in real time. This is our legacy, right? We going all the way back to the founding fathers to the present is American history, American legacy. And we went from fighting a revolution against an oppressive monarchy to Manifest Destiny, which arguably should also be rewritten as genocide and mass colonization, to, you know, leading the Industrial Revolution and leading in the post-war Reconstruction area, becoming a superpower, leading the world in education and healthcare, and then that just an industry, and falling off immediately at the start of the Reagan administration until the inevitable decline that accelerated with the first Trump administration. The historical significance, the damage that is being done to our country, just our country, our institutions, right? Our society, our communities, our neighbors, our economic well-being, right? Our access to healthcare and education and other public services and resources, right? The way we engage with one another, the way we interact and communicate with one another, the way we do our jobs has been fundamentally changed in just the past 10, 11 months. And we don't even fully understand the ramifications of the harm that has been caused. For instance, declassifying nurses as professional workers is going to have a decade-long impact starting from the day that it happened through to the point of this change that has to happen in January of 2029 with a new president. And then the several years that it'll take to train a whole new class of nurses and then train them in the field to the point where they might have the same experience that nurses have today. That is at least a 10-year process. 10 years to undo the harm that is being done now. 10 total years from now until when it can be set back to square one. Not even fixed, not even improved, just brought back to the same point where we were at the beginning of this year. Okay? Now, you add AI, the massive layoffs, the data centers, the environmental impacts fracking has had, drilling in all these other places, using our forests and national parks for lumber and development, developing regardless, just the increased amount of development that's been happening. The pollution, the deregulation of pollution and CO2 emissions, divesting from electric vehicles or alternative fuels regardless. What's another one? The way we interact with the internet. The fact that AI is already a problem and has been integrated in business, which has caused the massive layoffs, right? But the fact that AI is also pirating content from professionals, violating IP, decimating professional workspaces, and the fact that people are still not even using it in those professional workspaces, yet the corporations continue to buy into it more and more and more without anything to show for it, and the fact that it is causing sludge to occur in our news and in our media and in the way we interact with one another. The fact that it is eating our drinkable water and burning our electricity and causing our own bills to go up accordingly. Like, the impact AI has had alone is going to possibly have generational ramifications. And things are not improving. I haven't even listed off ICE yet. I haven't even listed off Doge and Elon Musk entering the White House, leaving the White House, entering back into Trump's good graces, etc. Right? I haven't talked about, the gold and the platinum cards yet. We've been talking about Venezuela, but I haven't even brought up the fact that we've been sending even more missiles to Israel and that we've been aggressing Venezuela and probably Colombia is next. The sheer amount of corruption, the sheer amount of undemocratic activities, the capitulation of the courts, the capitulation of the legislative branch of the federal government, the absolute capitulation of every single federal agency to include the agents themselves, bowing down in fear of this administration engaging in fascist, authoritarian behavior in just 11 months could be taught for an entire degree. Like, it is breathtaking how awful things are right now, and the fact that they are only going to get worse until the accelerationism hits an inevitable climax, a peak of where people are pushing back or tolerating, right? This is the absolute limit we can tolerate as a people. And any more than that, we will push back. And whatever that limit is, will become the new normal until they can trickle in more accelerationism, but at a slower pace. But at the rate we're going, folks, it's going to be full-scale war with Venezuela. It's going to be mass Kristallnacht-style deportations, kidnappings and trafficking of brown and black people, and then it's going to start targeting brown and black American citizens. Like, that is what they have stated That is their modus operandi. That is their mission statement. To bring the population of America down to 100 million white, Christian, straight Americans. The ultimate white supremacist ethno-state. I digress.
Exactly they've been up to in that country. You know, the focus really publicly from the administration has been those strikes on the alleged drug boats. And yesterday the Pentagon announced that they had struck the 31st boat. This was in international waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean. They say that it was transiting a known narco trafficking route and that 2 alleged narco traffickers were killed. But as with previous strikes, they didn't provide any evidence to back up those claims. That, of course, has...
Holy shit. This report has been going... Okay. This report has been going on for 3 minutes and 16 seconds. And this is the first time they mentioned evidence. Unbelievable.
Drawn all kinds of scrutiny from Congress who say that this could amount to extrajudicial killing. And so now that we know that these actions have begun on the ground in Venezuela, it certainly does signal that we're entering a new phase of this pressure campaign, Omar.
It then follows immediately up with pressure campaign rather than war crimes.
A phase that in some ways had been projected, and to your point, we just were waiting to see what that would actually look like if it happened, and here we have the reporting. Kevin Liptak, thank you so much.
President Trump appeared to first acknowledge the operation late last week during a radio interview.
And we just talked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant or a big facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. So we hit them very hard.
All right, now joining the group chat, Kim Dozier, CNN Global Affairs Analyst. Kim, thank you for being with us and joining us. I want to get your expertise and your thoughts on this first, both on what he said in that interview Friday, but also what he said on Monday when asked about the attack. So let's listen to what he said there on Monday.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs.
So is this just the same... Okay, so they're just going to rehash it from a different angle. Suffice to say that, war crimes in Venezuela by America, USA. All right. Let's get into some Epstein
the DOJ's
scandals, because we didn't get to cover any of them last week, and there have been more since then as well.
Says that it has uncovered potentially over 1 million more Epstein-related files.
Now, that's one of the things that really needs to be discussed, right? That there were hundreds of thousands of files already regarding the Epstein files that are being heavily redacted, and poorly at that, which we didn't really get to cover, which I don't know if we will, but suffice to say, it'll probably keep coming up, that these files were so heavily redacted that to release them didn't even serve a purpose. But they were also redacted so poorly that people could actually see what was written anyway, and it reveals some extremely just shocking information about what Trump and Epstein specifically got themselves into, including murder, including human trafficking, and the whole blackmail thing. Like, this should be, oh my God, this should be career ending. This should be immediate grounds for impeachment and removal from office. And instead, somehow this propaganda machine, which seems to be controlled by this administration, is just hanging on because nobody is willing to break the mold. This isn't okay. We have one of the most heinous criminals in American histories as president, and the most complicit government in history aiding and abetting this criminal. This cannot continue. And now we find out there is potentially over 1 million more pieces of evidence damning Trump and all of the other individuals that are in these files. We need to start seeing repercussions and ramifications. Not just, oh, I guess rich people were doing bad things and there's nothing we can do about it. Moving on. Like, there has to be action taken. There has to be.
Files. And so the Justice Department released this information on Wednesday, and this was potentially found by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and the FBI, and they are currently reviewing them for release. And so, of course, we've been following this as the DOJ has since released thousands of new documents from the Epstein files, yet earlier this week on Tuesday as well. And so to talk a little bit more about what we're seeing here with this potential new batch of files that the DOJ is going to be investigating, I want to bring into the conversation legal analyst Nima Rahmani. Nima, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox.
I'm sorry. Clinton got impeached and nearly removed in office for having indiscreet relations with an intern. Which, I agree. Bad, don't do that. 100% don't do that, right? You're the president of the United States taking advantage of an intern while you are married. Okay? That's not okay, right? We can agree on that. And yet, even that scandal didn't get Clinton fully removed from office. And it wasn't like Democrats were backing him up left, right, and center. Oh, boys will be boys, or, oh, he didn't mean it like that, or this, that, and the other. Yeah, they backed him up, and they, made sure that he didn't get removed from office. But beyond that, the government wasn't in Clinton's pocket, right? And they weren't bending over backwards to protect him. He became a lame duck after that, right? So, explain to me how being in the Epstein files at all, and so closely related to Epstein himself, and being implicated by the evidence, by preponderance of the evidence, the legal term, of being not just part of Epstein's circle, but being integral to the trafficking ring of underage girls for blackmail and sex. How is this not? I cannot wrap my head around the fact that this man is not in prison and being called to be put in prison by literally everyone. And instead, he is managing to get away with calling it a witch hunt. A witch hunt! Could you imagine Bush or Obama or Biden or hell, Clinton claiming it was a witch hunt and just refusing and then ordering the DOJ to redact the files and bury it? To order the FBI to cover it all up? There is not a single president in history that could have weathered this scandal. Not even Trump, his first term, could have weathered this scandal. But now all of a sudden, why? Why are these corrupt pieces of garbage so willing to sell out this country to prop up this piece of shit guy? Trump is not a great leader. He doesn't have a great vision. He doesn't have leadership skills or general knowledge of society or industry. He is a corrupt, self-serving piece of garbage who sought the presidency to keep his head out of jail. That's it. And yet so many powerful, influential people are aligning themselves with him because imagine the public support that they would get, the genuine respect of the people if they would flip on Trump, hold him accountable, and the most staunch cronies that he has. I don't understand how And even, well, he will retaliate against me if I do that. And so I'm afraid to do it. Times every member of Congress, the Senate, various judges, various state legislators, and so on and so forth, sufficient in numbers to prevent any real action being taken against him, right? Obviously, Gavin Newsom is on the news every other Tuesday talking shit about Trump, and there's obviously judges and federal judges that have ordered Trump to stop doing this, that, the other. Sure, I'm not saying that there isn't some pushback, but it's pushback without teeth. Where are the actual ramifications? Where are the actual orders for his arrest and removal from office? Right? Where are the Congress people and the senators for sanctioning him or other Republicans who are trying to cover up for him? They did it to Al Green for having the audacity to bring up Trump's indiscretions with ICE. And yet Trump is all over the Epstein files and not a single whisper. I find it, I can't wrap my head around the fact that this scandal is not destroying his administration. This should be the thing that makes this person go away forever. Removed from office, his presidency expunged, emergency elections nationwide. Like, that is what should be happening right now. And I am just beside myself with confusion that it is not happening. I cannot compute. It does not compute how Trump and his cronies are not being purged from government by the demands of the public and their peers. I don't understand it.
Thanks for having me, Christina.
And so, Nima, I have to first ask you here, when it comes to the Epstein files and the DOJ now saying they potentially have 1 million more files that need to be released, does this surprise you at any point? What does this all mean now that they've said this?
Christina, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but this is another continued embarrassment for the Department of Justice. We are now
Okay. It's not an embarrassment for the Department of Justice. It's an embarrassment for the fucking country. Also, it is an absolute failure of justice that there is this much evidence damning the president and the DOJ or Congress or public people in general are not taking any action whatsoever against this administration. That is the embarrassment. What he is doing, I guess this is Fox, though, so I guess we can kind of expect it from Fox. But the fact that the most that they are willing to do is disparage departments under this administration that were handpicked by this administration without any hint or irony that it is a reflection of the administration.
1 week removed from the December 19th deadline for the DOJ to produce the Epstein files, and obviously they have not met that deadline, at least in full. Now they're saying there's another 1 million documents that have yet to be reviewed. Let's not forget that Attorney General Pam Bondi earlier this year said that the Epstein files were sitting on her desk just waiting review. She promised to make them public well before the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Well, it seems like she didn't even have a full sense of the Epstein files because I doubt she had 1 million documents.
And again, they are clearly setting up Pam Bondi to take the fall for all of this. But Pam Bondi didn't have her name plastered all over the fucking files to begin with. That is Donald J. Trump. That is who is in the Epstein files. Who the fuck cares how poorly they have been handled by the Department of Justice or the FBI? The fact that Donald Trump is all over them is the story. It is the point. Why is he not being held accountable? Who fucking cares about Pam Bondi? Oh, she wasn't aware. Oh, she lied to... Trump is in the fucking files Throw the book at him. True Steel, welcome to the stream. It's so ghetto in my state, there are moldy politicians who will let go of that fake Middle Eastern state is fake. And people are moldy. Yeah, Ohio used to be a pretty reasonable state, you know, where people could debate and there was, you know, red this time, blue the other time, purple, you know, with really, really close races. But anymore, we've turned into like the South, which is nuts because William Tecumseh Sherman was born in Lancaster, my hometown, and personally won the Civil War for the North. So the fact that Ohio is succumbing to this Southern identity, the South will rise again, and this right-wing extremism is pretty disturbing and distressing as someone who has lived here a pretty hefty amount of his life. So yeah, I would say the ghetto moldiness, the whatever you want to call it, is definitely seeping in Ohio.
Documents sitting on her desk. And we're talking about the Southern District of New York. These are the career prosecutors who prosecuted Epstein the second time in 2019. So of course they would have more documents. It's really shocking how disorganized and frankly late the DOJ has been, and they continue to, whether it's in terms of the redactions or delays or withholding documents outright, fail to follow the law. So it's very disappointing that those that are tasked to enforce the law can't even follow the law. I hope they can get their act together soon in the coming weeks.
Which is pretty impressive from Fox News holding anybody accountable that isn't a Democrat, but is still a valid statement to make. Like, again, the DOJ isn't following the law. This administration isn't following the law. And nothing's being done about it. What we're finding out, honestly, and I hate to say this, I don't necessarily think the Constitution itself is flawed, but unfortunately, we are seeing that if all of the checks and balances that were built into the Constitution are ignored, then there are no more fail-safes left other than civil uprising. That's it. That armed revolution is the only fail-safe granted directly to the people implicitly, the Second Amendment. Arguably, the right to protest is part of it too, but it suffice to say, revolution in some way, form, or fashion, activism and organization is the only thing left, except we don't have a nationwide organization that can galvanize the public in a unified cause. I mean, because even MAGA is splintering, right? The left has never been unified. And anytime anytime the left, because I'm a Republican now, anytime the left gets close to unifying, the Democrats come in and destroy it. Or the FBI comes in and destroys it. Or the CIA comes in and destroys it. Or the federal government does something else, right? The point is, we don't have these organizational structures because they constantly get co-opted and destroyed or undermined in some way, form, or fashion. So the right to protest isn't really helping anymore. It's not a viable strategy because, one, we have to build in real time the infrastructure to protest effectively against the government while resisting the government from disrupting that organization, while building the numbers necessary to mount an effective protest against the government. Never mind convincing the country to do an armed uprising or rebellion, right? Which would be the Second Amendment. So, there are no fail-safes in the Constitution. That is what we have found out. Is that if it ever came down to every branch of the government, to include the states and the cities, conspired to work together under a common goal of undermining the Constitution or ignoring the Constitution to engage in their own perceived activities, there are no legal consequences to that. There are no legal speed bumps or levers or walls that could be placed. There is no legal ramifications or consequences that are automatically in effect. None. It's either the checks and balances system works or the people unite to topple an oppressive government. If neither of those things are happening, which is the case right now, then the Constitution, I'm not going to say fails, but it doesn't have an answer. There is no answer in the Constitution to deal with a divided population and a colluding government. There is not a solution in the Constitution. There is not an answer nor a response to address that scenario because, understandably, the founders did not ever consider the fact that it would come full circle. Or perceive that the people would ever allow themselves to come full circle in the first place, right? Because they had just got done fighting the Revolutionary War. France did, but you get the point, right? So there is a major, glaring, unfortunate weakness to our Constitution. Now, can we address it? Absolutely. An amendment. Couple amendments. But that requires a constitutional convention, which is going to be interfered with the aforementioned collusion of government powers, including the states, right? Because you have state governments that are acting the same way the Trump administration is acting, but at the state level versus the national level. So do we think we could get 32 states to agree upon automatic ramifications, automatic legal consequences for corruption or being a part of an international blackmail and child sex trafficking ring? Right? That's pretty on the nose. It's pretty specific, but evidently it needs to be said, right? So unfortunately, where we are at this point in time in our history, the Constitution,
as we're talking about, I want to put up that statement that the
does not have a solution to our current problem. Now, there are figures that have national influence and national name awareness that could potentially be that unifying force. Keyword. Could. However, let's go back to the capitulation, fear, threats, co-option, right? Bernie Sanders in 2016 was probably the guy that could have brought our country together for the right reasons. He was probably the guy. At that point, Bernie Sanders was the guy. After the 2016 election, the 2020 primaries, Bernie Sanders was probably still the guy. It was probably still going to be Bernie. But the Democrats once again interfered and undermined him. And look what happened. We got Biden. So, now, in 2025, Bernie Sanders is out there holding rallies, thousands of attendees to resist Trump, to support Democrats. No kings. Bernie is no longer the guy. Gavin Newsom was never the guy. Mamdani is not the guy. AOC is not the gal. Nina Turner is not the gal. I'm trying to think. Charlie Kirk wasn't and no longer is capable of being the guy. Ben Shapiro could never be the guy. Tucker Carlson can't be the guy. J.D. Vance isn't even liked by the president, let alone Republicans. I think, oh crap, I can't. Erica is trying to, weasel her way into the vice presidency so that she can maybe elevate his horrible image into becoming president, but that still doesn't make him the guy. That makes her the gal. And I don't think she's that popular either. So my point in all this, from the right or from the left, there are not an influential enough people or individuals that could bring us all together. And arguably, neither is Trump. Trump, however, has united the capitalist class. The class that controls and or owns everything. He has successfully negotiated a unity, a treaty, an armistice, a ceasefire, a lack of infighting between them, so long as it goes through him. Because, well, there have been business leaders being burned by this administration, right? So, my point in all of this is there's maybe 1,000 people who are working together like this, but who control 90% of all resources in this country, to include telecommunications, who are making it extremely difficult, not impossible, but extremely difficult for the remaining 330 million of us to effectively work together to resist those 1,000. And that, oh my goodness. And that is what we need to overcome. Now, am I going to sit here and say that I, Samuel Ronan, as congressman, can be that unifying voice? Yes, I am going to say that, actually. Yes, I am going to say that. I do 100% believe I could be that unifying voice. But therein lies the rub. Could. If. When. Assuming. Possibly. Right? First, I have to win the primary. Well, first I got to get on the ballot. Then I got to win the primary. Then I got to win the general. Then I got to survive to get a sworn in. Then I got to make it through my first congressional, whatever, meeting, I guess. Call to order. And then I got to find the opportunities to speak out against this administration and the cronies in Congress. And then I got to be invited on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and talk about it. Or hold pressers to where they can't ignore me. Right? There's still a shitload of work that needs to be done. Because I am not an internationally or a nationally known face or name. Right? I'm not someone who has decades of experience behind them with being in office. Right? So, we still have to build the damn thing. Unfortunately, that's the rub. We have to build this infrastructure, this platform. It's not as daunting as it sounds, but it still requires work and focus. Focus on the goal, which is, in the short term, getting rid of Trump. But in the long term, it has to be preventing another Trump from happening. And if there is any sort of unifying message that we can possibly come up with, because it's clearly not the environment, or healthcare, or taxes, or wages, or education even, that unifying voice, that unifying message has to be no corruption. Even then, people are like, well, that's so broad, right? You'll never make it work. But that is what brings us together. We don't want people to lie to us. We want to be able to trust politicians. We hate the fact that we can't. We hate the fact that we are powerless and out of control. So that unifying message has to be people first. People first. Not America, not the institution. Yes, I am saying not America first. People first. Americans first. That is our unifying message. That's the platform. But that still means we need an astronomical amount of voices working together to accomplish that goal. Right? And then we can start uniting against this. But that is the shortfall that we are facing today. If the government is complicit and the people are divided, there are no answers in our nation's laws or constitution to react to or respond to this situation. So, we walked by Sherman's statue at Central Park yesterday. I gave Leia a short history lesson. Nice. Have you watched Quantico? I think they should have done an episode of the FBI and CIA destroying leftist circles. I'm actually surprised they weren't bragging about that, considering it was the FBI that dismantled the Black Panthers, which existed as a response to the KKK terrorizing black communities, and the FBI turned right around and dismantled the Black Panthers, and yet the KKK is thriving to this very day. You are the guy, Ronan 2026 and 28. I mean, thank you, Anna. Appreciate it. That's why you're on the team. No. Anyway. How far did we get on this? Oh, we didn't get very far on it. Went straight to the tangent. Let's try this instead.
Let's bring in MS Now legal analyst Mary McCord. She's a former principal deputy assistant attorney general for the National Security Division. Also with us is former federal prosecutor Ankush Kaduri. He's now a senior writer for Politico magazine. I should note, Mary co-hosts a really amazing podcast you all should listen to.
Absolutely. You know, Mary, I want to start with you because what we know about the Trump folks is that they think about flooding the zone on everything. But what we've seen here is kind of this drip of things coming in and out, which seems to be the detriment of Donald Trump. That's one. But also they're breaking the law, as Simone brought up here. And there's no reason for us to believe in 5 days we'll get this, the explaining of the redactions. I want to bring up this actual text that's in the law that Donald Trump signed on November 19th. Within 15 days of completion of the release required under Section 2, the Attorney General shall submit to the House and Senate committees on the judiciary a report listing all categories of records released and withheld, a summary of redactions made, including the legal basis. Now, the question is this DOJ operating under the original deadline and timeline? I think not, maybe. Or are they operating on something completely different? If so, what's the legal ramifications, Mary?
Oh my goodness. He actually asked the question, what are the legal ramifications? This guy might have spared himself a spot on the Central Park trials.
So I think we can probably expect that DOJ will comply with that reporting requirement relevant to the reason each of their redactions was made. I think that will probably be...
They redacted whole fucking pages. Like, literally, the pages look like this napkin. Actually deeper, because there's no light that goes past them. What's the justification? They even redacted the page number. Page 1, which is redacted here, was redacted due to this reason. Like, are you serious now? Like, they spent over a month redacting this many pages. You think they also were in the same token writing reasons why they redacted them? They're not even going to be able to know what was on those pages.
Coming out on a rolling basis, let's just say, the same way that the documents themselves are coming out on a rolling basis. And of course, the Transparency Act, passed by both houses of Congress, signed into law by the president, has a deadline that has passed. So that means there are various options that the Congress could take. I mean, it could certainly hold hearings about this. We're hearing talk from Representatives Massey and Ro Khanna about inherent contempt, the type of a contempt proceeding that would not require referral for a criminal contempt proceeding. This would be something that the House could do on its own and assess fines against the Attorney General. And, the Congress could sue. I mean, they do have standing. If enough agree to bring suit, the majority agrees to bring suit, they could bring suit to enforce compliance. But, in many ways, I'm not sure any of that is going to change what the Department of Justice is doing, including potentially...
Okay. Explain to me, like I'm 5, how Congress could sue the Department of Justice for contempt, for all the things that she just said, and the Department of Justice be like, I don't care. We either are a nation of laws, where the law carries weight, or we aren't. And the fact that the only time we are a nation of laws is to keep poor people in check is egregious. And the fact that this is becoming more and more obvious, that there are laws for us, me and you and me, right? Them, but not for the politicians or the muckety mucks. It is becoming extremely obvious how corrupt our society is and exactly how gilded the separation has become. Like, hello? If Congress can't hold different agencies accountable, and if agencies can't hold the executive accountable, we don't have a government. We have a dictatorship. And that's what's being admitted in not so many words.
Monetary fines against the attorney general. I think that you kind of hit that nail on the head, Eugene, when you said, on the one hand, having these come out in, fits and starts, albeit a bunch of it right, on the eve of the holiday, does just prolong this for Donald Trump. And one really, I think, would have thought that if they were able to get everything to post at the same time, it would have been in his interest to have so much happen at one time. It would have been a huge story, and then it would gotten overtaken by all the events, like you said, the flood the zone. So I actually...
And again, they're talking about the strategy of, well, if they had just released all the documents all at once, it would have been a news story for a few days and then brushed under the rug, as if we were talking about not submitting the Environmental Protection Agency annual report on carbon emissions, or, I don't know, the jobs report, or what's another just boring, regular humdrum report? The military failing another audit, right? That's something that people ignore all the fucking time. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that the most notorious modern child sex trafficker and blackmailer of modern times was working hand in hand with the President of the United States of America, to the point where the President of the United States of America was on the precipice of being handed the keys to said child sex trafficking ring. And they're trying to discuss that as if it would have just been a few days of a news cycle. And this is MS Now. Y'all.
Actually think, and also having spent well more than 20 years in the department, major projects like this, when you're talking about the volume of documents, do take time for review. National Security Division lawyers are reviewing for classified. Now, there can't be that much classified in there, really, but still, they're reviewing for that. There's reviewing to take out and reject, identifying information about victims. And I think it's a volume issue, and maybe they didn't put enough resources to it, but I do understand by reporting that, hundreds of attorneys in the National Security Division were put on this full time. So I think if they could have gotten it done in time, and we could say they should have started this long before the statute, but still, if they'd have gotten it done in time, I think they would have preferred to put it all out at once.
I don't know if it's that much of a priority for the attorney general, the deputy attorney general.
I'm sorry, but I thought they had people combing through it already, Luke, to find out where Donald Trump's name.
So you can't really, this guy here at the corner here, he's a little cut off. This guy looks like, the way I feel, like, are you guys out of your fucking minds? This isn't a joke. Like, I don't know what he's about to say because we haven't heard him say anything yet, but, like, this is not a joke. This should be concerning every citizen, to include Republicans, to include diehard Republicans. Your Lord and Savior is complicit, overwhelmingly mentioned throughout the Epstein files as not just a participant, but an actual acting member of the activities, the trafficking, the blackmail, facilitating.
Was
slow roll.
And then they briefed the president. So why America can't get the documents, I don't know. I've just been on vacation for a week, so maybe I'm off.
You're losing. And Coach, I want to ask you about this bombshell we have regarding the reporter Julie K. Brown. She has really been the hero of all of this, which is a very ugly chapter in American history. She has done the tireless work of getting this story to the forefront at the Miami Herald, was really the one that did the initial reporting on Epstein and just how vile and disgusting the entire thing has been, including the fact that he got a very sweetheart deal at the state level in Florida by Donald Trump's former Secretary of Labor in the first administration, Alex Acosta, who ended up having to step down from that job in 2019. You were at DOJ for a time. Why would the Justice Department be interested in the flight logs of a reporter who is investigating the Epstein scandal in July of 2019 when the Secretary of Labor then steps down and a month later Epstein kills himself? Why is DOJ interested in those flight logs of a reporter?
You know, I'm actually going to stick to the position I've taken on this show a bunch, which is I'm not going to jump to conclusions based on a single page that was pulled out of God knows how many documents at this point. It raises real questions. You're right. Julie Brown is right to pose them. Perhaps Pam Bondi should be asked about it when she next appears before Congress. If it were true, it would raise some questions about whether they were infringing upon the First Amendment. But there's going to be a lot of this. There's going to be a lot of this stuff coming out. These random bits of paper that we don't understand. And we just sort of are going to have to be patient here. I mean, this has been, Mary is right in terms of all the logistical issues, but, we are where we are, and this is a debacle. This is a professional debacle. The Justice Department has completely screwed this up.
Yeah. They cut him off because he wasn't giving anything useful. And my throat is really not complying with me today, which is really frustrating because, one, by the way, let's do it this way. By the way, this week we might not be streaming the correct days, or the times, I mean. We were extremely fortunate that today I got on at the normal time that we're normally doing, but I'm babysitting contractors at work, so it could be that we don't even start until 8 or 8:30, right? So just putting that out there. But yeah, I think between the dryness and the fact that we went from spring weather to extreme winter weather is not helping. Anyway, that being said, I don't know how much the Epstein files can be used in a congressional campaign, because it just seems like people care about the file. I don't see why we well, New Year's Day shouldn't be an issue, considering New Year's Day is the part that is the holiday, is the midnight part, and we're not streaming on midnight. And we end at 10 anyway, so that's plenty of time to go get drunk and usher in the new year anyway. So I was planning on streaming tomorrow, but then again, if you are going to do the New York City New Year's, I mean, then I guess I guess we won't. I guess make that decision then by the end of the stream. Suffice to say, there are issues that people care about. Evidently, the Epstein files is one of them, but not enough to determine votes, right? And that only works if you're campaigning against Trump for the presidency, which we won't even be able to start doing until like 2027 anyway. So, to use it in the congressional races, like, I don't know, honestly. So but it's clearly something that people need to be aware of. Like, people, and again, this is the thing that is supposed to ruin careers. And the fact that it isn't is deeply disturbing and distressing. I am stressed that this is not ruining people's careers. So, God help us, I guess. Although, God has probably abandoned America at this point. But yeah, I think people care more about healthcare and affordability. No, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. It's obviously a more close to home issue than rich and powerful people on a pedophile list, I guess. It's just nuts that this scandal has not ruined this man's career. Like, I don't understand how he can be this much of a cockroach. I really don't. I don't understand how he is weathering all of these different storms. I don't get it. Simply Steve, welcome to the stream. God, there is no God. I mean, hey. All I'm saying, if there is a God, she is an extremely wrathful God. And it's like, fine, you don't like women or brown people? Then fuck you too. And then we got Trump. So, all right, let's get back to our stream. Let's do some
Luigi Mangioni's lawyers say that there is a profound conflict of interest when it comes to the Justice Department's case against their client, arguing that Attorney General Pam Bondi is biased in this case. The reason? They say Bondi once worked as a partner at a lobbying firm that represented United Healthcare's parent company.
She is biased because she's being ordered by Trump to make an example out of this guy, and most Republicans are trying to make an example out of this guy because they don't want to be next. The fuck? Obviously she's biased. Like, you don't have to come up with some far-reaching excuse. She's biased on account of the way she is.
United Health Group is that parent company of United Healthcare. Mangione is accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson a year ago outside the Hilton in Midtown. In court documents filed late Friday, the 27-year-old's lawyers say that Bondi was a partner at Ballard Partners, a lobbying firm, in 2019 after completing her term as Florida Attorney General before President Trump tapped her to lead his Justice Department. When Bondi signed on as USAG, she announced that the Justice Department would seek the death penalty for Mangione, calling the killing a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. Her words. Mangione's lawyers saying that Bondi's comments, along with hers seeking the death penalty, shows that she is acting based on politics, not merit. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney and current criminal defense lawyer David Katz says it's a smart move by the defense attorneys, but that it most likely will not end with the federal charges or death penalty getting dropped based on Bondi's expected defense.
She's going to say that this really was something different. This was a murder case, and she made a decision on it, federal murder case, and she's the Attorney General. This one could go either way as to whether she was properly making that decision, whether she should have recused herself from deciding on the death penalty, too. The federal charges will not be dropped, and I don't think the death penalty will be taken off the table right now.
Well, this court file,
which, again, goes straight to the whole corruption thing. You can be a ridiculously good defense attorney and bring up extremely valid legal arguments, but because it's the Department of Justice, the Attorney General of the United States of America, saying, no, we're going to get this guy and we're going to kill him, all of a sudden all your arguments go out the window. It's funny how that works, too, because even if you're in traffic court and you're arguing with the validity of the cop, pulling you over in the first place, and you're arguing statutes and case law and this, that, and the other, they also dismiss you arbitrarily because you're not a real lawyer. It's almost as if, again, the criminal justice system is whoever has the most power and authority at the time. You're the goddess, La Diosa. But she also has financial ties. I went by the Hilton yesterday and paid my respects to Luigi. Nice. Razor, hello, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. 2025, yeah, what a hell of a year it has been. We were definitely talking about how just about every single day or week of this year has been some form of historical event and nightmare. So anyway, free Luigi. His attorneys deserve all the money. Hopefully they can force the federal Department of Justice to back off or even get the charges dismissed, because quite frankly, with the sheer amount of abuse and corruption and trying to paint him publicly and nationally as this monster, the violation of his rights, the fact that Pam Bondi should recuse herself, yet there's no way to hold her accountable for not. Luigi deserves to walk, plain and simple. So, that's all I'm going to say on that. I mean, there's plenty to say on it, but we'll leave it at that. Razor, among other things, yes. We are talking about how Trump is corrupt, how the government is colluding with him. We aren't talking about the man as an individual, because quite frankly, it's irrelevant apparently at this point how mentally incapacitated he is. As long as people are willing to support him and back him and use him for their own ends, they'll prop him up no matter what the cases are. All right, Simply Steve, 3 outcomes. We all die from the nukes, we all die from the disasters, or we all die by the hands of the Gestapo. In the end, we all die. I'll even be positive we all gonna die quick. I mean, if you're watching this channel, you're the likelihood of it being by nukes or disasters is slim compared to the Gestapo. That's your number one likelihood by watching this stream. Hope you're not trying to travel internationally and expect to come back to the United States. All right. Moving along to our list.
Well, here's a new video the Department of Homeland Security posted online today. DHS says it shows federal agents going door to door as they investigate fraud allegations across the Twin Cities. 2 DHS officials tell CBS News that ICE agents are expected to look at more than 30 sites in Minneapolis alone. It's part of an investigation into what Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is calling rampant fraud. The visits from the federal agents today come days after a blogger posted.
So ICE agents are investigating fraud, which is a financial crime. So wouldn't the IRS, or the FBI for that matter, be the proper department to engage in that process and not the Gestapo? It's time for our generation to rise up and fix what these lazy, incompetent people have ruined. Funny you should mention that, because about 30 minutes ago I went on a very long rant about how our Constitution has proven itself to have a glaring weakness, which is, if the people are divided and the government is colluding in their corruption, there are no fail-safes. And the only fail-safes there are, again, rely on the unification of the people or the following of the checks and balances by the government. So, we got to build that network of unification, that platform of unification of the people, if we want to take our country back, or we can just watch it collapse from the inside as it devours itself in the most heinous way possible.
Posted this video alleging fraud at daycare sites. It's a video that's been viewed more than 100 million times on X. Investigative reporter Jonah Kaplan's been doing his own digging into this issue. Jonah, we're really curious to see what you're finding out.
Well, Frank, early childhood education is a program supported by Medicaid, and federal prosecutors tell us that program is not high on its priority list when it comes to investigating fraud. Still, that doesn't mean there aren't any problems.
This is a video posted by YouTuber Nick Shirley over the weekend.
He visited nearly a dozen Somali-owned daycares in the metro.
Where are the kids?
It's been seen more than 100 million times, shared and amplified by Elon Musk and members of the Trump administration. The allegations, these daycares are no different than the restaurants implicated in the Feeding Our Future scandal. Fake businesses only created to defraud the government, but the facts say otherwise.
There were 10 early learning and childhood daycare centers that were either visited or cited in that viral video. This is one of them here, right by 35th in Chicago. And look, brightly colored building, lots of signage, and there's a playground around the corner as well. And speaking to neighbors, people who work in the area, they said they've seen children, sometimes several dozen.
Our analysis found all but 2 of the sites have active licenses and were visited at least once by state regulators this year, some as recently as 3 weeks ago. Many sites, including the Future Leaders Early Learning Center, were cited for safety violations, but there was no evidence of fraud. 2 sites, including the Quality Learning Center, had already shut down.
All child care centers in Minnesota receive 1 annual visit from the Department of Children.
The fact that racism and xenophobia can be so quickly amplified on social media and picked up on by extremely powerful and influential people to force investigations or to immediately impact public opinion is one of the dangerous ramifications of the modern age that we have yet to even fully understand, right? Our way of life has changed so dramatically in just 10 years thanks to social media. Now, am I saying that right-wingers need to be silenced and racists need to be silenced and deplatformed and this, that, and the other because I'm an evil tree-hugging liberal? No. I am saying we need to truly understand that if people are going to use their voice and use these platforms to cause harm or to spread fear, they need to be treated accordingly. Again, spreading fear, inciting violence is a crime in every single state. So this piece of shit, inciting fear, inciting potential violence against Somali-owned businesses because of the rhetoric of the president, which is bad enough in of itself, should have consequences. Legal ones, financial ones. And the fact that the only thing that's happening is that other news networks are covering it and trying to debunk it with significantly less than 100 million views just goes to show that what allows information to spread in this day and age is not equal. It's just, it isn't equal.
Youth and families from our licensors, and these visits are unannounced.
State officials on Monday told WCCO News they're going to visit some sites again because of the concerns raised in the viral video, but there's been no reason to hold up payments or Medicaid reimbursements.
I think we have questions around when were these visits, when were the videos taken? For instance, were they during times that the center was scheduled to be open? Was it during the weekend? I think there's some clarity and questions that we'd like a little bit of additional information on.
If you watch that video,
which is an extremely valid point. Nobody's going to take their kid to a daycare on a weekend unless they work weekends, and only if that daycare is open on weekends. Which again just goes to show how quick it is to spread propaganda and misinformation, even without the need of using AI or green screens and video editing. All you have to do is disingenuously report information and paint with a red brush a demographic that's already under fire and hope for the best. That's insane. That is insane how easy it is to harm people or to harm communities, but extremely difficult to benefit them or protect them or raise them up. That, again, fear and hate are the most easy things to spread on social media.
There is a timestamp on the marquee on some of the buildings in the background, and you get to see the date and the temperature, December 23rd. So 2 days before Christmas. How many
daycare centers are open. We did make an effort to speak with those managers at some of the daycares we visited, but no one wanted to speak with us, Frank.
All right. Jonah, thanks for digging into that.
Hey, folks, Katie.
So that was the Minnesota allegations. Oh my goodness. Sorry, chat. Wasn't keeping up as well as I should have. I do have a one-up. I'm Irish and German and I'm white. I hate saying that, but that's the role in today's America, unfortunately. ICE are more barbaric than the savages themselves. I even saw the clip of the pregnant girl being dragged on her stomach, or the arrest of the children of migrant people. This is barbaric. Is it a return to the glory of slavery once again? Quite frankly, it is. And we've been saying this since as soon as we were streaming this year, which I think was around April, that the ICE raids that started in California and people were saying, oh, that's all the worst that it's going to get, to the point of what we're discussing right now, where children are being, used as bait for parents or being arrested outright, being picked up in schools, arresting first graders and second graders. Like, it's only a matter of time until Kristallnacht becomes an everyday occurrence. A matter of time. Whether that's days, whether that's weeks, or whether that's months. But it isn't years, it's months at most. This is all to stir up hate against any non-white person. Yep, that is 1000% correct. And the children's centers are being investigated due to the video. Right, because again, it's easy to spread misinformation, lies, and fear and hate monger and getting organizations involved. It's just like the University of Oklahoma firing the professor who failed the student for writing that idiotic paper that wasn't even well written. They fired the teacher because the student was able to grift hard enough to get enough international or national attention on the school that they, instead of kicking out the student who was a piece of shit and a problem, they got rid of the teacher. Which only proves that, again, no institution is secure in the sense that no institution functions fundamentally on behalf of the people. That if given the choice between supporting the people and the innocent and the victims, or caving to pressure from those with power and money, they will cave every single time. If some random man came to my school trying to come in and walk around, I wouldn't let them in. We don't allow strangers in. Security should be even higher at a children's center. Yeah, but see, that's the problem, right? If you start having armed security around children, they're going to be afraid. And then they're not going to want to go to the child center place. And then you're right. People shouldn't just be allowed to waltz into those centers. But if you don't let them in, they're just going to cause a stir. They might call the police on you because the President of the United States has already labeled you and your people, your culture, your community as a threat. Do you see how no matter what they do, they will be wrong? No matter what they do, they will end up being a victim of the racism and xenophobia? It doesn't matter how law-abiding or how correct these Somali child care centers are. If these right-wing racist pieces of shit want to make their lives miserable, they don't have to try very hard to accomplish that task. And that's the problem. That is the entire problem. The goal of the Trump administration is the return of slavery. Trump has a Nazi mentality rooted in his German heritage. As if they migrated for no reason, they destroyed their homelands. Right. No, I mean, I agree that Trump is trying to make America Reich again. I 100% agree with that. And not just because I agree with it on principle. I mean, look at the facts. Look at where we are now as opposed to where we were January 21st. Like, and again, just a short 11 months, we are functionally no different than Nazi Germany. To include having death camps, because people are dying in our ICE detention centers. All right. More corruption, and then we're going to try and get into Well, let's get into the corruption first. And then
Katie Fang here. I wanted to go through some amazing reporting from the Miami Herald. It came out before Christmas. And again, there's been so much going on, and understandably so, about the Epstein files, the, vessel strikes, the war against Venezuela. I mean, there's just so much going on that this probably didn't kind of register on your radar.
Which is another failure of reporting. Why would you post a report showing that a governor funneled or embezzled $35 million away from Floridians on Christmas? Why would you do that? Or right around Christmas time?
But it's so egregious, and it involves Governor Ron DeSantis, that I felt like it was so important to share this information with you. And so I wanted to get into the details. And again, my hat off to the Miami Herald. Local journalism, folks, always support it. Our local journalists are telling us what is happening in our...
Yeah, and they're doing a significantly better job than our national reporters and our state reporters. So you know what? We need to start elevating local journalism as high as we fucking can, because it apparently seems they are one of the few that are doing the work that is guaranteed and outlined in the Constitution.
Respective backyards. It is invaluable reporting. And I know that I am just preaching to the choir when I say that our local journalists, our papers, our publications, they deserve our support. While we're talking about support, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'm asking you with respect, can you...
Katie.
Maybe you have to subscribe to the... And it is Governor...
Are you supposed to just shamelessly plug yourself before getting into the content of the video? Should I be plugging myself every hour on the hour? Hi, I'm Samuel Ronan, your future president. I'm currently running for Congress. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. The fuck? Nobody cares. Nobody wants to listen to that. The only time that's appropriate is at the end or at the extreme beginning. Hi, welcome to the channel. We're about to get the stream started. I'm Samuel Ronan. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get into it. That makes sense. But like, right in the, this has been a whole fucking minute.
Ron DeSantis's administration diverted more than $35 million in taxpayer funds as part of his agenda last year in 2024 to defeat 2 ballot amendments that he staunchly opposed. I'm going to say some of the key parts again. DeSantis diverted $35 million in taxpayer funds. Taxpayers in Florida, your funds that were earmarked for specific agencies in Florida, for specific services, for specific communities, diverted to fight against 2 specific ballot initiatives that were on the ballot in November of 2024 that DeSantis didn't like. And wait till you hear what they were, those ballot initiatives.
So, that's wild. That is insane that it's breathtaking corruption, right? So there is state money being used by the governor to, instead of use for the public good, is being used as lobbying and propaganda against 2 ballot initiatives. The governor was himself abusing his position by promoting, or I guess demoting, ballot initiatives using public dollars. And a significant sum of public dollars at that. That is, like she said, an extremely bell-alarming, great reporting and journalism, but the fact that it barely even made 100,000 views on her own channel, let alone that I don't think I even heard about this until seeing it here. Like, it got buried in the news cycle because it happened during Christmas, like the Christmas cycle. Like, why would you release this during the holiday and not save it for Monday? Like, why would you, like...
It is. According to the Miami Herald, much of that diverted money, much of that diverted $35 million, was intended to assist needy Floridians, including children. Instead, it went to DeSantis cronies, political consultants, lawyers, and thousands of advertisements that helped DeSantis and his ass kissers win at the ballot box. The two ballot amendments were the one that was going to basically put into the Constitution of Florida the right to an abortion. It would have basically gotten rid of the idea that you have.
Okay, Katie Fang, you're not delivering this information well. Okay, so he funneled public money away, which is bad enough, to undermine ballot initiatives that were pro-choice, and what was the other one? Was it in here? Oh, and marijuana. Which is nuts, because when you think of Florida, you think of Florida Man. And what is Florida Man always doing? High. He is high on something, doing something stupid. So the two ballot initiatives that he defeated with public money was legalizing weed, which is a cash crop, and taking away women's rights and body autonomy, which has been an unfortunate trend in this country over the past several years. Arguably decades, but that's getting into more of the social history rather than the recent aspects. Anyway, that is what DeSantis was caught doing, and it's not even made a blip in the news cycle. And that should be national news. National news. And they couldn't have fucking waited to release that on Monday, like yesterday? Really? Really? Okay. In our final hour, let's see what we can get into here. A couple of short videos.
Is Kristi Noem and others in the Department of Justice one step closer to having a criminal prosecution referral from a federal judge? His name is Chief Judge Boasberg, and as expected, he was not happy with Kristi Noem's sworn declaration and that of Todd Blanche or anybody else, as he's trying to figure out whether the Trump administration willfully, in contempt, violated his orders to ground the planes to El Salvador back in March. If they thought telling the judge to effectively go pound sand, we're not going to tell you what really happened, and to mix and match in the affidavit all sorts of information that's not true about the planes, and that was going to be the end of it? No. We got a new order from the judge in my hands. We've got a new declaration from Emil Bovee. If you like this update, check out and subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel.
We didn't even get the plug. What? That wasn't even the threatening. You didn't even get to your point. Bruh. Okay. All right. I couldn't even find any other videos about it, which just goes to show how quickly that was buried. Colorado passed that same law in our state, Amendment 79. Right. And that's the thing. Like, Colorado is an extremely blue state. So, anyway. I'm not leaving. You're right, I'm not leaving. We got another hour left. This clown didn't even get to the point of his title of his clip. But yeah, there should be a Quantico series of the CIA going to other countries and then beating Africans and other marginalized groups. I mean, you're 100% correct. Or the fact that there are black sites in the United States where where it's not considered American soil, and so they can detain and torture and terrorize American citizens on U.S. soil. Well, not U.S. soil. The other videos were like 20 minutes long about Kristi Noem. That's fine. I'll just skip through them. Like, that's not an issue. My throat isn't working. My finger is. So.
Pardons are being...
Now, this guy, shockingly, only has 126K subscribers. Maybe he's more of a TikTok person. I like this creator. Advice from Lewis. I like Lewis. Lewis has really good clips. And if you're not familiar with him, obviously we're going to watch this, but to give you some context, he has a background voice that's going off the rails, doing the, I guess, the public rhetoric, if you will, right? Or the anti-message of what he's trying to actually convey. And then he'll face the camera and be like, this is the actual issue and this is what's actually happening. What is wrong with you, right? And he does it in a humorous way. So, if you're not familiar with Lewis, that's a bit about Louis. Let's get to it.
Sold for $1 million by Donald Trump.
Why?
Lobbyists leak that it's pay to play if you want to get a favor from him. That's why all these millionaires are getting pardoned from prison like the Honduran president, even though he trafficked over 400 tons of illegal substances into the U.S. Or you have to get invited to Mar-a-Lago.
So you're basically immune to the law as long as you have money?
Yes, because many people pay to get to the Mar-a-Lago. They just pay under the table for the pardon. There's also another way, though, that if you allegedly ask Trump in person and use the words unjust persecution, he'll likely give you the pardon. But once again, to get to Mar-a-Lago in the first place, you have to pay or get extremely lucky.
So the only way to get away from the law and to get a favor out of him is to send him money?
Yes, that's why Jinping Zhao got released from prison, even though he was giving money to ISIS, trafficking rings, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist organizations. Trump pardoned him. As well as the creator of Silk Road, who sells illegal substances online through Bitcoin. He had a lifetime sentence, and Trump pardoned him too. Now we can focus on Venezuela.
How can you be against something and then pardon the people that are doing the thing you're against?
I guess you forgot the part that when Trump entered office, he immediately got rid of the Bribes and Corruption Act. So now under the table payments can't even be tracked because there's no accounting for it.
So then what does this mean for America's future?
It means it's still
We are now in oligarchy 2025.
I mean, he's not wrong. And I guess we must have missed the video where he got rid of the Bribes and Corruption Act, which, again, the president doesn't have the power to do. Your executive order cannot undermine existing statutes. It cannot do that. Now, the pardon. Here's the real... Remember how I said that this administration is causing problems that are going to have ramifications for years, if not generations, depending on which topic we're talking about? Let's address the pardon. We have discovered on stream several different ways that if a president pardons somebody, the next president can't undo the pardon. Which means the heinous criminals that were mentioned in that video, they're free. And because of double jeopardy, they can't be charged for those same crimes again to be locked away again. And who knows what activities they are going to get themselves into now that they are free over the next 3 years before I become president in 2029. When I say this is the most criminally corrupt administration in history, and that it is breathtaking in how just obvious and brazen it is, and that there is still nothing being done about it, proves that it is collusion between everybody who could do something but isn't. I cannot stress that enough. Between the pay to play, between the pardoning of extremely dangerous or well-connected criminals, between the war crimes and the crimes against humanity, like, any number of those things should be career-ending. Certainly impeachable. And yet, none of them, not a single one of them, has resulted in a single charge or petition being filed. And if you can't track bribery and corruption anymore at the federal level, then, like, why do we have the FEC then? I mean, at this point, can I just take money from Amazon, give them the middle finger, and spend millions of dollars without tracking it? Or does the law magically reappear when it's somebody like me, or who isn't in Trump's good graces? now I'm going to get investigated by the FEC. But that's okay. I haven't raised any money yet. So they're not going to... There's nothing to find, literally, on account of there is no money. But that's my point. Like, if there isn't a law against corruption and bribery, and or there is no way to track it anyway, then effectively corruption and bribery is the law. It is legal. It is legal because it isn't illegal. It's legal because it can't be tracked. And it's legal because it's happening on live television and being bragged about by the very person who got rid of the law in the first place. Like, what? What? Okay. What will happen after the theft of Venezuelan oil and the expulsion of immigrants? That's when we start going after American citizens who are brown or dissenters. That's exactly what happens next. And Anna already answered that. I see this administration wants a monopoly on selling legal drugs, so he takes out what he's saying in his competition in Venezuela. That's not even true. This administration just wants to control everything that they feel entitled that they should be able to control, which unfortunately, in this case, seems to be the world. Trump apparently thinks he's world dictator, and there aren't enough countries getting in his way and forcing him back into reality. And of course, our own country isn't doing enough to keep this piece of garbage in check either. Making money, even illegally, throwing addicts into the streets without treatment. Well, there is that, if that's what you're talking about. Pharmaceuticals versus, like, fentanyl or cocaine or heroin. I see what you mean now. Okay.
January 1st, tens of millions in the United States will see their health insurance costs soar when subsidies under the Affordable Care Act expire. Health insurance premiums are expected to more than double or triple for some 20 million people, pricing many out of health care coverage entirely. The enhanced subsidies were first put in place during the pandemic. Congress is on recess until January 6th, with Republicans reportedly leaving early for a 2-week holiday break without voting to extend the ACA, or Obamacare, tax benefits. Divisions over the issue were at the heart of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history earlier this year, with Democrats insisting on continuing the subsidies. For more, we're joined here in our New York studio by Elizabeth Benjamin.
Yeah. Oh, shit. I wasn't on the right video. Sorry. Anywho, my bad. That happens. There's our technical difficulty for the stream. It happens. It's not a stream until I fuck up or the stream fucks up. Anyway, the fact that these Republicans left early to go on break without voting on something that's impacting around 10% of the country is egregious and should be immediate grounds for their removal from office, right? Immediate grounds. You could petition it, of course, but most people don't know how to start a petition, and then, well, you still got to get the signatures, and nobody likes answering their doors to ask me how I know. The other thing is they're not even coming back until after the expiration happens. On top of that, the shutdown was because of this very issue, and 6 Democrats betrayed the country because they got the promise that Republicans would debate about health care if they opened up Congress again, which is insane because there was no debate, and the Republicans did what they were going to do anyway, which is what they are doing, which is flee and allow 20 million people to suffer. Like, this isn't governing. This isn't a government. This isn't a functioning democracy. This is mafia tactics at best, right? Oligarchy, right? Corporatocracy, right? Fascism, authoritarianism, dictatorship. That's what we're dealing with right now. This is no longer a functioning democracy. Exactly. They don't deserve a holiday break. They should be locked inside with only bread and water to sustain them until they get their shit together. 100%. And you know what's crazy? The president has the constitutional authority to force them to meet and stay and debate. That is literally a power that the president has. They will say that healthcare is a waste of money if you can't pay large amounts to the hospital, so you should die without treatment. Of course, that's what they'll say. Santa doesn't exist. These cruel ghouls leaving early and making others suffer get gifts. It's a dysfunctional government. I wouldn't even say it's a government at this point. It's just, honestly, it's just a giant racketeering program at this point. Again, mafia tactics. If you can kiss the ring of the Don, ironically, you can get favors with them. And if you don't pay the Don, or if you don't support the Don, you'll get removed and destroyed or whatever else. They don't believe a man should die because he is gay or black. They believe a man should die because he is poor. But also if they're gay or black. So let's not forget that the racism, homophobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia, all of these things are also very, very, very true.
Vice President of Health Initiatives at Community Service Society of New York, member of the New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's transition team. Elizabeth, welcome back to Democracy Now! Explain what's about to happen. It's January 1st.
Yes, starting January 1st, people will no longer have access to what's called enhanced premium tax credits. This enabled us to cover about basically double the number of people that were able to participate in Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act tax premium credit program or financial assistance program that enabled people to purchase health care in a more affordable fashion. You know, the Affordable Care Act benefits really crucial members of society, people, small business owners, self-employed people, gig workers, people, artists, writers, a whole swath of folks will no longer have access just because the premiums are so expensive now, and the nation has essentially done nothing to control health care costs. So it's going to be very difficult come January 1st for many, many Americans, about 11 million. On top of that, with H.R. 1, the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, we know that that President Trump and the Republicans that voted for this bill will make it much harder for our lowest income members of America to be able to retain their Medicaid coverage. So between the two, we estimate over 20 million Americans will lose coverage, essentially undoing every single gain we have made over the last 15 years.
And the fact that we've made any gains in healthcare in our country is impressive, because we treat healthcare as damn near taboo, and something that only the few privileged elite are allowed to have access to. And she's right. We are wiping what little progress we have made in healthcare affordability and accessibility and wiping it out the window, just destroying it outright. And the fact that is not front and center in the news or being talked about or debated at city halls, state houses, or whatever else is just... Again, my main question is, how much more suffering must we endure as a people before we remember that we do have the First Amendment and or the Second Amendment, and that we can collectively organize and demand better from our government? Like, I don't know what that limit is, because we are several steps into fascism already. Several steps. And it looks like we're going into full-fledged oligarchy or corporatocracy on top of that. Like, we are eroding capitalism and going straight up to feudalism, like with kings and queens and nobles, where only those at the top get to dictate any sort of terms, and the peasants have to deal with it or get slaughtered by other peasants who are treated marginally better. Oh wait, that's what's already been happening. So I really don't understand how much more has to happen before people get their shit together and start recognizing, like, we cannot allow things to go any further. Ah, damn it. let's go to this.
As millions across the United States struggle with rising food and living costs, we look now at how the Trump administration's plans to resume garnishing the wages of student loan borrowers who haven't been able to make their payments for at least 9 months. An estimated 5 million people are currently in default on their student loans. The billionaire Education Department Secretary, Linda McMahon, has confirmed the agency will notify about 1,000 student loan borrowers of plans to withhold a portion of their paychecks starting the week of January 7th. The number of notices will then increase every month for the rest of next year.
All I'm saying is garnishing the wages of people who are already unable to pay student loans when the student loans could just be erased or forgiven by the government like that is definitely not the way to win and capture the hearts and minds of the people. The fact that people who have been paying their student loans have usually paid back the loan amount itself in triplicate and still owe more than what they originally borrowed is insane. And the fact that you're putting billionaires in charge of the Department of Education to target and harass impoverished people who have degrees but a job market that no longer welcomes them is absolutely insane. It is batshit insane to me that we have a government that is so openly and so ghoulishly, so joyously attacking citizens and undermining society and truly undermining the economy and in our functioning workforces in the process. I am floored at how I mean, look at all these people in this picture grinning and smiling. Like, look at this bitch. Look at this fucking asshole. Look at her making the sticking tongue. Look at these people making faces and words, right? All of that rampant glee because they're sticking it to poor people who had the audacity to try and better themselves. How is that not... And I don't understand how more people aren't seeing and hearing this and reading about it and getting enraged. Where's the anger? Where's the outrage? Where is it? Secondly, and I get the other part of it is, well, what am I going to do even if I am angry? I can't quit my job because I need to pay bills or I'll be homeless. Again, the people are in disarray. We are heavily divided and we are under extreme financial stress, which is allowing corruption to run rampant because we don't have the means to lay down our tools to speak to and hold accountable those that we elected to represent us. So something has to give. And quite frankly, I don't know what the limit is of when we are no longer afraid to lose, when we have reached the point of having nothing left to lose. Because we're not having an education, we're not having healthcare, we're not having wages, we're not having jobs, we're not having housing, our infrastructure is crumbling. What do we have left to lose? Seriously. I don't understand why there isn't more community action and organizing happening that is causing a unifying effect. I don't understand it. Sorry, chat. I'm gonna try not reading, only because I'm struggling.
The Trump administration already began withholding tax refunds and Social Security benefits from some student loan borrowers in default, as it also slashed affordable repayment options for millions of people. We are joined right now by Julia Barnard, the higher education team lead at the Debt Collective, former student loan ombudsman at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you so much for being with us, Julia. Can you just start off by explaining what's going to happen for student loan borrowers in default? How many are there? Their wages are going to be garnished?
Yes, thank you for having me. Like you said, we've got around 5 million borrowers currently with federal student loans in default. That number is expected to increase to 10, potentially even as high as 15 million borrowers with loans in that status. Borrowers then become subject to a range of negative consequences, including forced collections like wage garnishment, tax refund offsets, like you mentioned, including seizure of anti-poverty benefits like the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit, and other refunds, and also negative credit score impacts. So yes, it's an extremely negative experience for borrowers who have loans in default.
20 million people are about to lose their health care. 15 million people are going to be unable to provide for themselves, some of which are on Social Security benefits, which means they're not working, or there was somebody that was part of their lives is dead and they're getting death benefits. So the government is going to seize death benefits and child tax credits so that people are forced to pay back predatory loans, because they can't get jobs for their degrees because those job markets no longer exist. So now we are effectively going to have 35 million people in a dramatically impacted financial situation. Some of them might be overlapping. And those 35 million people are just the payees, right? The people who pay for the health insurance or who pay for the student loans. That's not talking about their dependents. 35 million payees are being impacted by this administration's horrific domestic policy. If we assume an average dependent of every single one of these people of even just one, that's 20% of the population. If it's two dependents, we're getting into 30% of the population. Do you see how this becomes an extremely negatively impacting domestic policy decision? When 30% of the population is going to be in dire straits and therefore need to rely more on government support in order to survive, or fall into homelessness, adding to the already rising numbers of homelessness, which is being treated as a crime and dehumanizing. And it's not just minority groups that are going to fall victim to this, although they are the ones that are going to be targeted the most. This isn't governing. This is domestic terrorism by a government against its citizenry. Plain and simple. 1930s all over again, and now they want no protections for people in risk to their lives or jobs. Right. It's worse than the 1930s, because the 1930s happened because of the stock market crash and extreme wage inequality. It wasn't the government wantonly making people suffer. That happened after the fact. The richest country in the world and has the highest rate of crimes and homeless people, it's America. Well, or the lowest life expectancy, the lowest access to health care, the least cost-effective health care in the world. Like, any metric that actually measures the quality of life of a nation, and we are the worst out of developed countries. And we're probably worse than some of them that are second or third world countries.
And Julia, in terms of the growth of student debt, it's more than tripled between 2007 and 24, now to more about $1.7 trillion. How did the amount continue to escalate even during the period of this 5-year reprieve that existed?
Yeah. It's a complicated question. Student loans have increased. 44 million Americans now owe student debt to the federal government. That doesn't even include students who put tuition on debt products like credit cards or tuition payment plans or other types of debts. Tuition prices, the cost of college has continued to rise, as we all know, and as you've mentioned in the program. Costs for medical care, healthcare premiums, housing, childcare are going up. So increasingly, individuals are debt financing education, whereas in the past that used to be a good provided by the government with the recognition that an educated population makes our nation more competitive and bolsters our democracy.
Why is she giving very legalese answers? Is she a fucking lawyer? Because, ma'am, I don't need you to tell me the legalese of the ramifications of the technical terminology of the whatever, right? Debt products. Who fucking talks like that? I'm autistic, and I use fuck as a comma, okay? And I can use jargon and technical vocabulary in politics and my industry, my career field, all day, every day. But that defeats the purpose of expressing information to people who are not in the know or a part of that career field. So why would you speak at such an extremely high level where only in the know people would even understand what you're talking about when you're discussing something that has broad societal implications? Like, this is infuriating. This is why people hate liberals. This is exactly why people think that intellectualism is elitism. Because of shit like this. And it's not that she did anything wrong. It's not that she wasn't advocating for people. But it's the delivery.
And what's the latest on the Trump administration's plans to privatize some of this nearly $2 trillion in federal student loan debt?
Yeah, I've read those news reports as well. As far as I can tell, that is not going very far. From what I understand, there's not a lot public about the process. From what I understand, and from what I know in my experience, the student loan portfolio is not a very profitable asset. The government is protected from certain consequences, certain legal consequences that private creditors are not protected from. So I think it would be a very risky asset for any private entity looking to buy the entire portfolio or a portion of the portfolio. As I understand it, the only profitable parts of the portfolio are kind of Parent Plus loans. There are certain tranches of the portfolio that could make sense, but the Debt Collective, for example, has said publicly that we'd like to put in a bid on the non-performing parts of the portfolio, for example, like the parts of the portfolio that are in default status.
Julia, two quick questions. What's the role of the billionaire Education Secretary Linda McMahon? One of your colleagues, Esther Taylor at Debt Collective, has called the Education Department simply a debt collection agency now. And what options do people have?
Yeah, thank you for the question. There's a certain amount of discretion involved. It's a choice to turn on the debt collection program. It's a choice to contact employers and have them garnish wages and send them to the Department of Education. We know from our experience trying to turn off the wage garnishment system during the pandemic that 2/3 of people who were experiencing wage garnishment in 2020 had illegal collections after Congress had voted to stop collections on wages. So it's a very difficult system to turn on and off. And I think it's cruel and hostile to working people to turn the system on before we're sure that we can run it in a compliant manner.
If she wasn't on Democracy Now! And she was instead at a forum discussing debt or finances or anything else, I wouldn't have a single fucking complaint. 3.12 million people are subscribed to this channel, and only 30,000 people viewed it because she opened her mouth and was like, oof, and they got off. Well, I guess there's only 30,000 viewers, like it doesn't matter if they saw her or heard her or not. I guess my point here is, like, the Debt Collective is an organization that I have worked with in the past as a volunteer or as someone that was trying to work with them to get them more exposure. And we can look them up. The Debt Collective is a pretty... let's just... Can I just type in chat? Where was... They used to have how much they had actually gotten taken care of. So they hold events. I thought they had a running tally at one point. Well, that's interesting. They have a dispute your debt. So there's like all sorts of tools here that... Okay. There we go. This was the one. So. Oh, goodness. Okay. Oh, my God. This is what they do. And the fact that this is a very relatively unknown org that has still somehow managed to get 31 million taken care of is pretty impressive. And I encourage anyone watching now or in the future to support debt abolition and the Debt Collective and so on and so forth. The thing about debt is that debt companies will buy debt from banks or wherever for pennies on the dollar, meaning, say you have a loan for a house, $300,000. Well, that loan, that principal, $300,000 is for 30 years. After the first year, it's still a 1-to-1 ratio. After the second year, it's maybe like 85 or 95 to 1. And then by the 10th year, it ends up being around 60 cents to the dollar. Well, once you get into the 15th or 20th year, it ends up being something around like 5 cents or something like that. Another example is medical debt. The older the debt, well, in general, I guess it just matters. In general, the debt, the age of the debt. The older the debt, the less it costs to acquire. Meaning you still acquire the full principal amount and you have the legal right to collect it, but you only paid a significant fraction. I think it was the Colbert Report did it live, where they established a debt collection agency, went on the debt collection hub, I guess, and randomly bought $50,000 worth of debt that amounted to, I think it was $20 million of medical debt, or maybe it was 15 or 30. It was something between, like, it was millions of dollars that he spent for 50,000, and he just deleted it. That $31 million of debt could be $50,000 worth of purchase debt. Do you see what I'm saying? It could be $100,000. So this debt collective may have only raised several $100,000, but they were able to get rid of nearly 32 million. Now, if you do that proportionately, it would only take about $1 billion to wipe out the entire student loan debt. $1 billion. So instead of wiping out the debt, which is only valued at approximately $1 billion, they're going to try and leech $1.4 trillion out of 15 million borrowers across the country. to go back into the federal government, I guess. To do what? Spend more money on ICE? To terrorize brown and black people? This is my point. This is John Oliver. Okay, thank you for correcting me on that. The point in all of this is this forcing the wage garnishments and emphasizing the collection of the principal amount of the debt rather than forgiving the debt is absolutely piss poor, honestly malevolent domestic policy. This is vicious, deliberate harm being caused to citizens when you could instead have a $1.4 trillion surplus stimulating the economy rather than extracting the $1.4 trillion, which you're never going to get anyway, but attempting to extract the $1.4 trillion and putting it towards some government initiative. It's just bad policy. It's extremely harmful, and it's vicious. It's violent. It's vindictive. It is cruel, and it is deliberate. It is a choice to do this, and they are choosing to do this. This government is choosing to hurt you. This government is making the choice to harm citizens. When given the opportunity to lift people out of poverty or out of struggle or make things more accessible or closing the door or making it more expensive or punishing people, they choose the latter option every single time. This administration is actively engaging in harm increasing, harm expansion, not harm reduction. And maybe there's better, catchier ways to say that, and I am open to any and all suggestions. But that is the message. That is the narrative that has to start being spread across the country. This administration, every single secretary, cabinet member, is actively engaged and invested in harming the people they are responsible for. And that cannot be stressed enough. You pay taxes, you pay almost everything. What do you get in return? Funding ICE, no good healthcare, no salary raises, etc. And in the end, they will make you bankrupt to kick you out onto the street. Exactly. It's, again, mafia tactics. If you don't pay up your protection money, we'll break your business and or kill you. And in this case, literally. Well, that case literally too, but hence the mafia correlation. All right. I gotta thank Anna for not giving us that much dystopian nightmare stuff, although the domestic policy struggle is no less harmful. But at least I'm calm, which has probably spared my throat despite it struggling today. I think is the last really bad domestic policy that's coming out right now. Oh, you know what? Fuck it. Let's have a little bit of levity here. Harry Enton.
With 2025 almost in the
not Manu Raju. Harry Enton, our favorite CNN statistician.
books, it's time to take stock of the very tumultuous first year of President Trump's second term and what it means for 2026 and beyond. Trump has transformed the country in countless, often unprecedented ways by barreling through boundaries and at times ignoring the limits of the law, slashing the federal government, issuing sweeping tariffs and sparking a global trade war, cracking down on immigration and targeting political enemies, and so much more. But first, how are voters feeling about his presidency so far? Let's begin with CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, to walk us through what the polls say and how they've changed.
Hey, Manu, look, 2025 was not exactly the best year for the President of the United States. He started off in pretty gosh...
Or the American people or anybody on planet Earth.
Darn good territory, right? Trump's net approval rating in January, he was 6 points above water, pretty much above where he was during his entire first term in office. But look what happens come December. 12 points underwater, way, way down there. That is an 18-point decline during the course of the year. Now, what has driven Donald Trump's decline in his net approval rating? Well, it's independents. That is the name of the game, baby. Look, in January, Donald Trump's net approval rating among independents was about even, -1 point. Not too hot to trot, but not too bad either. Now, whoosh, we're talking about 43 points underwater come December. That is a decline of 42 points.
You know, I gotta say, I think this guy is I think this guy is obnoxious as fuck, but I'll be damned if he isn't entertaining and really into his job. This is a man who loves his job. He loves the numbers. He loves pointing at the black and then at the red and saying, "Look at this shit. Look at it." I gotta give him credit. He is an obnoxious asshat, but he loves what he does and he's good at it. I gotta give it to him. In fact, he's rubbing off on me. He is definitely. I'm warming up to him after all this time.
Points on his net.
As of January, I had him at like -43, but over the course of time and him being the #1 statistician, I'm getting him up to like -15.
Approval rating. Donald Trump is hanging out with Jacques Cousteau. That is how far underwater Donald Trump is with independents at this point. Now, what issues are driving this decline in Trump's approval rating, his net approval rating? Well, let's look at two of the key issues, right? The economy. The reason that Donald Trump was elected to a second term back in January, he was in pretty good shape at +9 points on the net approval rating. But look, come December, 16 points underwater. That is a decline, doing the math quickly here, of 25 points for Donald Trump on the key issue of the day, the economy, the reason he got a second term. And then, of course, immigration, which Donald Trump has really focused in on during his second term in office, something he has been focusing on since he first ran for the presidency all the way back in 2015. Well, in January, he was 9 points above water on the issue. Now he's 6 points below water on the issue. So on the key issues of the economy, inflation, going in the wrong direction for Donald Trump. Now, there is a bit of good news, or at least some solace that Donald Trump can take when you compare him to other 21st century presidents at this point in their second term. Look at their net approval rating. Trump is 12 points underwater, but Barack Obama right nearby at 11 points underwater. George W. Bush also right nearby at 10 points underwater. So you see this? Hey, Trump isn't doing so bad, but here's the key nugget to keep in mind. Their parties, Barack Obama's and George W. Bush's, both suffered major losses come the midterm elections in their second term. Why? Because, take a look here. Okay, term 2, negative net approval ratings at this point. Did they go positive by the midterm elections? In Barack Obama's case, no, it didn't happen. His party lost control of the Senate, suffered major losses in the U.S. House of Representatives. George W. Bush didn't go positive either by the midterm elections. His party lost control of the House and the Senate. And then, of course, all the way back in 1973, going into 74.
This fucking guy. This is why I hate him. 1973. Fuck you. Fuck you for saying that and making all of us feel way older than we actually are. Am I the only one who sees that Trump is creating those problems to prevent people from interfering with his policies or projecting to anything he does? No, you're not. The thing is, this is also what Hitler did. By blitzkriegen the politics and the laws and all these activities, the slow-moving machinations of government aren't able to keep up because of the bureaucracy. Which goes back to government could be efficient, but is purposely not efficient because of redundancy and transparency issues, and so that when you choose to be corrupt, fascist, and oligarchic, you can just do whatever the fuck you want, and it's going to be too difficult for anybody to keep up, so long as everybody is in compliance with the corruption that is being pushed.
Richard Nixon's net approval rating was negative. He was actually forced from office before those midterm elections, and then his party suffered major losses in Congress. We'll have to wait and see if the same thing happens to Donald Trump. He gets a question mark at this point, but based upon history, it doesn't look too good for the man in charge of the White House right now. Oh, and Manu, Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year to you too, Harry. And I've got a terrific panel joining me right now, seen as Jeff Zeleny NPR's Tamara Keith, and Bloomberg's Mario Parker. Happy New Year to you guys as well. A lot to look forward to in the year ahead. Let's take stock of what just happened and where things are going. Harry, those numbers were pretty stark. I mean, look at this. The independent number I was really struck by. I mean, Trump was down with independents by 1 point in January. Now he's down by 43 points underwater. A 42-point slide.
And
wow.
It's wow. And this is not news to the White House. I mean, you can hear it sort of week by week recently. President Trump is increasingly asking, in midterm elections, why do presidents, their party lose seats? He's just been bringing it up randomly in Oval Office meetings.
I wonder why.
It's on his mind. Of course, he has seen this movie before. In 2018, the first midterm of his first term, he had big losses. It's why the White House has been so obsessed with redistricting. It's why they've been so obsessed with trying to change the game. And as we end the year here and look forward to the new year, the redistricting is about a wash. I mean, there are still a couple unanswered questions. Florida, for example, which is going to help Republicans a touch. Virginia is going to help Democrats a touch. But by and large, redistricting alone is not going to save the president. So I think when we take stock of what we know now about Trump, he's been a very activist president in terms of flexing the executive authority of his office. But we also learned how he spent.
Did this motherfucker say that he's a progressive president? Flexing the authority of the executive office? That is the exact fucking opposite of a progressive. Do you even know what that fucking word? Oh my. I'm not reading that. I don't have enough throat.
Spends his time. Mm-hmm. I think that is one of the reasons that the numbers are so low, because he promised to fight for you. He's actually doing a lot of stuff for himself.
Yeah.
Like plaques, the Trump Kennedy Center, a lot of things. So that is what frustrates some White House advisors. He promised to be your retribution. He's actually just doing stuff for Donald Trump. And I think that hits at some of these independent numbers.
It's such a good point. And we're going to be talking about those Trump awards later in the show and what it all means. But Tamara, you cover the White House. When Trump looks at those numbers, is he denying those exist, or is he privately acknowledging we got to change course here at least a little bit?
Well, look at his behavior, right? He didn't hold rallies much of the year. All of a sudden, he's holding rallies. Now, are those rallies on message? No. But he's giving the audience what they want, which is the weave and all of the things and all of his complaints and all of his retribution and all of that. But I think that these numbers answer a question, which is what happens when a president only governs for the base and only governs based on his whims, his desires, his ideas of what makes good policy? And the answer is you lose independents. You lose Democrats who probably weren't going to give him the benefit of the doubt anyway, but you find yourself very deeply underwater. There's a reason why presidents often, when they enter office, try to govern for all Americans. Mm-hmm. And President Trump has really made no secret of his desire to just focus on the base, focus on keeping the promises he made in the campaign.
It's really been his mantra since coming into office,
yes.
Focus on the base.
Yeah, and he has kept a lot of promises, including some promises people didn't really believe he was going to keep.
Right.
And that, like, seeking retribution and all of those other things, proves to not be popular with the broad swath of the country.
And this was what alarmed a lot of Republicans when hit the numbers that Harry discussed about the economy and immigration. I mean, look, two issues. He's down 16 points underwater. Compared in immigration, that's an economy. In immigration, 6 points underwater. He was +9 in both in January.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why he won.
No, absolutely. A couple of.
I'm trying to not talk. And they're saying some shit. First of all, if Trump is losing that many independents, why is that not translating into more community organizing and more campaigns, more candidates, more third-party efforts, more Democrat support, and this, that, and the other, right? Because the natural implication would be that if they're shifting away from him, they're going to shift elsewhere, right? But instead, these independents are shifting away from politics. Democrats' popularity is even worse than Trump's, if you can believe that. They're not talking about that at all. we're not going to have a flip in Congress because people don't like Trump or his Republicans, but they also don't like Democrats. So the only elections that are going to occur, the only changes that are going to occur, are those who are taking a clear stance for something and are able to get that message out there, which is extremely difficult to do if you don't have resources or it's your first time campaigning and you don't have a lot of support or public name recognition, right? Which then you have to rely on Uncle Jimmy, your cousins, your brother, your sister, your best friends, your coworkers to try and help you win an election when none of y'all know what to do, and you don't have any resources either because you don't know how to search for my name because you've never heard of me and you don't know I exist. So, the long and short of all of this is, yes, Trump is deeply unpopular. So are most presidents in their second term because they're focusing on their agenda and not what the people want. Because their first term went to shit because they focused on what they wanted instead of what helped the people, or their donors instead of what helped the people. So, suffice to say, in this moment of American politics, we have the most dangerous administration with the most unpopular party as the opposition, with the most disenfranchised voting bloc in history. This is a Molotov cocktail of destruction. This is the implosion. This is the 400-year decline of the Roman Empire happening in a matter of months or years. And that's enough of that. Let's get some good news in here, shall we? Good news in 2020.
It's here, the big one. Some of the best good news stories from 2025. The fact you're here looking for some reasons 2025 was good probably shows what type of year it's been. If you're new here, I'm Sam and I make videos highlighting good news and solutions to some of the world's biggest problems. And I do monthly roundups of positive stories that you might have missed. And if you've been here before, welcome back, my friend. And if you've enjoyed these roundups this year, tap that like button and I'll keep them coming in 2026 too. I've asked a few friends for their favourite good news stories of 2025, so keep an eye to see who pops up in this video. So let's get into it. Here's some good news from 2025 you might have missed, starting with January. 2025 started with news that the Democratic Republic of Congo is creating the world's largest forest reserve, spanning 540,000 kilometers, the same size as France. The Congo Basin is the largest remaining tropical forest in the world, so a newly announced Kivu-Kinshasa Green Corridor based on the success of Virunga National Park will help restore this critical habitat, protect endangered species and fight deforestation. Huge news was announced in the UK as the National Trust announced a plan to restore nature across almost 250,000 acres of land across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. To put this into perspective, that's 10 times the amount of landscape is restored over the last decade. And across Africa, community-run conservancies are proving that local stewardship works. In Kenya's Masai Mara, community conservancies make up just 25% of the ecosystem, but contain 83% of its large mammals, showing wildlife thrives when communities lead conservation. And in more conservation news in January, India has doubled its tiger population in just over a decade and is now home to more than 3,600 tigers, 75% of the world's total, despite having just 18% of global tiger habitat. A new study credits this success to anti-poaching efforts, habitat protection, engaging local communities, and reducing human-wildlife conflict, proving that tigers can coexist with people. Barcelona celebrated improved air quality for the second year in a row, thanks to ongoing efforts to reduce pollution across the city. And from cleaner air to cleaner water, in England, clean water campaigners won a major victory after United Utilities dropped its legal fight and released sewage discharge data for Lake Windermere that it had been trying to keep from the public, proving that transparency and accountability can win when communities stand up for the environment.
When communities stand up together, we win. Just because that happened in England doesn't mean that that can't happen here. Now, I wonder if this guy separated it into countries. He did not. All right, I guess we're going to
Now
continue.
let's head into February. In a massive tipping point for the right to repair movement, all 50 states in the US have now introduced right to repair legislation. These laws aim to give consumers the freedom to fix their own devices by requiring manufacturers to provide access to parts, tools, and repair information.
So those laws came up, but there's been no information since February. Well, I hate to break it to you, Sam. Great name, handsome fellow. Here he does great things for the community. Looks like it fell flat after the fact. All right, let's try this one.
In 2025, renewable energy generated more electricity than coal, for the first time in history. In medicine, doctors can now effectively treat newborn babies for malaria, something that was impossible until this year. Dozens of endangered animal species are recovering around the world. And the Pacific just got a marine protected area half the size of China. I'm Freddy, this is good news, and this is our biggest episode of the year, as we're looking at the biggest wins of 2025. Our first story brings incredible news for the planet. For the first time ever, renewable energy generated more electricity than coal globally. Between January and June, renewables supplied over 5,000 terawatt hours worldwide, surpassing coal for the first time. China and India drove most of this shift, despite rising energy demand from economic growth. China's solar grew by 43% and wind by 16%, compared to last year. Despite coal still being the largest energy source at 58%, renewables have expanded rapidly. And India saw even bigger renewable jumps. Wind and solar increased by 29% and 31%. This helped the country reduce coal and gas use by over 3%. All of this pushed the world past another big milestone.
Not that we support Elon Musk, but it seems like this is the only answer here. Energy storage system in Scotland. But it doesn't exactly say how much space that takes up. I'm just curious, right? Like, are we talking, okay, this is energy storage. You know, are we talking about solar farms? Are we talking about the fact that solar panels are on roofs now, on buildings and homes? Like, that's good to know. I mean, we can generate 5 trillion terawatt hours, or 4 trillion, I guess. Is this total then over time? And then produced in a year, I guess. Different graphs with different purposes. But, like, that's really promising, because it also seems like even though coal is the largest energy producer, it's clearly not the most efficient, right? So you got all this infrastructure for coal to produce less energy than all the tiny infrastructure for solar and wind that is out there, which is honestly a great outcome for the potential future of energy needs, and not just our country, but globally. If these renewable alternative electricity and fuel sources are already more affordable and more cost effective than the fossil fuel versions, then that is the future of our world, and that's a great thing. So like that is absolutely amazing to be able to see and discuss. So I know I'm trying to wrap up, and I'm also trying to not talk as much. So he kind of covered what are we here? So coal phase out, financial relief, world's largest marine protected area. That's pretty awesome. Major wins for forest protection, real-time emissions tracking, endangered species recovered, global fur production collapse, which is good because that means we're not poaching animals. And world's first malaria treatment for newborn babies, which is amazing because typically that, I think, required you had to be at least like 4 or 5 years old before, because the strain was too strong. It would overwhelm a baby's immune system. And major medical breakthroughs. So, I mean, like, that is all incredible information right there. Let's, I guess I waited too long to get into the feel good because I got too caught up in the domestic atrocities. Anna, please add these again to the Thursday stream. We'll click on this one too.
2025 is coming to an end, and it...
So it looks like this is largely the same thing. So could you please put both of these videos on for Thursday? And we'll make it more of a point to actually watch these. Since they're longer, we might even... You know what? Why don't we just make Thursday? Well, no, it's a recap day. Yeah, but you know what? It is like the new year, right? So let's make it a recap of the year type deal. Like, good news that happened throughout the year. Let's do something like that, and we'll try and ignore the news as much as possible, or we'll only do like 30 minutes or an hour or something. We'll do the Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman, Democracy Now!, the War and Peace Report. Let's do that as our news, and then we'll try and do the feel-good stuff afterwards. But this one particularly interests me, the green energy and hydrogen, largely because it's the most abundant element in the universe. So why the fuck would we not develop technologies to utilize the one element that we could never, ever use in its entirety? Like, we would have to be able to siphon suns and stars and galaxies worth of them before it would even, there's no way, right? We could evolve for millennia upon millennia, and we will never be able to consume entire stars worth of fuel. Or at least if we are at that point, then we're parasites and we got bigger issues. So the fact that hydrogen technology is on the rise is pretty freaking awesome. Let's listen to this.
We have talked about some of the more established renewable sources. Now let's talk about one that's less well known. Green hydrogen. We need hydrogen for stuff like oil refining, steel production, fertilizers, plastics, and other heavy industrial processes. Most of the time, though, it is produced using fossil fuels like natural gas. This is called grey hydrogen, because it wasn't made in an eco-friendly way. It only becomes green hydrogen when it is created with renewable energy. Currently, though, it costs 3 times more to make than grey hydrogen. And this leads us to a promising development that will make it cheaper. 2026 will witness the first shipment of green hydrogen across the Atlantic Ocean. But it won't actually be sent over as hydrogen. That's because it needs to be cooled to extreme temperatures. And only a few ships and terminals in the world can currently handle that. That's why it will be broken down into ammonia and methanol. These chemicals don't need to be cooled to such extreme temperatures, making them easier and less expensive to store and transport. I know a single delivery across the Atlantic might sound pretty insignificant at first. But this shipment is basically the starting point for a global green hydrogen supply chain. And much of it could eventually come from Saudi Arabia. Right now, they are putting the finishing touches on the world's largest green hydrogen plant. By mid-2026,
That looked like a fucking sci-fi panorama of like a sci-fi community in like Alpha Centauri, whatever. The fuck? Is that a render or is that actually a real structure?
touches on the world's largest green hydrogen plant.
Well, hot damn. That is exactly, okay.
By mid-2026, it will have full solar and wind power generation. And once it opens, it's going to produce 600 tons of clean hydrogen every single day. Meanwhile, in Scandinavia, they are making green hydrogen an essential ingredient in steel making. The steel industry accounts for 7% of all global carbon emissions. That's because they burn lots of fossil fuels to transform iron ore into iron. The very same thing, however, can be done with solar, wind, and green hydrogen. And engineers in Sweden have shown that a carbon-free method can be performed on an industrial scale. It involves a hydrogen storage system located 30 meters underground. This facility has been linked up to a nearby steel factory. And this setup has an innovative pricing mechanism, which is linked to the global renewable energy market. When green electricity costs are low, the factory is powered by wind and solar. At the same time, the storage facility takes advantage of the cheap, clean electricity to produce extra green hydrogen. This creates a surplus. When prices are high, the factory changes power supply to green hydrogen. Switching between solar, wind, and green hydrogen in this way makes steel production carbon-free. And it makes it cheaper as well. 25 to 40% cheaper to be exact.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. And that is true. I think we covered that Saudi Arabia is trying to get away from oil and gas because it knows that it has a finite supply of however many years worth. And they're trying to get ahead of the game by investing in tech and hydrogen and clean energy. It's a very impressive polar shift of economy and future vision that other countries like Europe, well, not that Europe is a country, but you know what I mean, the European Union and America are just refusing to participate in. It's like Saudi Arabia, which is known for its extremely harsh conservative leadership, and history of doing things, is more willing to adjust for the future than the global leaders of clean energy and progress. So, and there's also the linear city, which I don't know if that's actually a thing that they're actually working towards as heavily, but I do know that that has been mentioned and that there is. I've seen reports saying that they started it and then something went awry, or that they are doing it slowly on the side. Either which way, we finally made it to the stream. I only coughed up half a lung throughout all of this. So I appreciate your guys' patience and putting up with my health. As always, we stream Tuesday through Thursday. We cover local news, well, U.S. news on Tuesdays, foreign news and policy on Wednesdays, and we do a recap on Thursdays. This week being possibly an exception to our hours given my own work schedule. So hopefully we'll see you at 7, but if not, we'll just start a little later. Don't ignore us. Please come back. Please come back. Other than that, I will try and be healthier tomorrow. I can I can only do so much, I suppose. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for joining us. Like, share, and subscribe. Share with your friends, family, and neighbors. We are trying to do something here. We're trying to make a difference, and we need your help to do it. So on that note, take care. Have a great rest of your night, and stay healthy. Samuel Ronan, your president, out.